My roommate and friend has been secretly robbing me and my girlfriend pretty much every day for the past 3 months. But after we caught him in the act on camera and called the police on him, my roommate actually tried to claim that all of our footage was created by AI, forcing us to basically have no other choice but to have him arrested because this guy has seriously been robbing me and I just can't take it any longer. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Okay, so I work in filmmaking and I run a small production agency in Hong Kong. And just for context, I live with my girlfriend in a 4-room apartment. We share the main room and we have an office room and an equipment room and also a spare guest room. Now, a friend of mine, let's call him Carl for the sake of the story, told me that he had been struggling financially after losing his job 9 months ago, and he asked if he could stay for just a few months. And you know what? I told him that sure, we could do that. And I even told him that he wouldn't have to pay rent unless he could. And unfortunately, that's the last good interaction I ever had with Carl, because holy crap, things spiraled out of control from there. Over the past 3 months, things kept going missing. 2 lenses, 3 wireless audio mics, various cables that we need, and even 2 vintage cameras. My girlfriend also told me that her makeup and jewelry is also missing. So after doing the math, we confronted Carl multiple times, and every time he had a different excuse. He would deny it and then suggested that it could be my helper, my crew, or my girlfriend's colleagues. But holy crap, we straight up did not believe him. So in response to these lies, we installed small security cameras to try and see what was actually going on. Well, fast forward, and one day while Carl was out for an interview, I set up the cameras and I connected them to Wi-Fi and I recorded it to the cloud. Later that day, while my girlfriend and I were busy, Carl came home and chilled. I then told him that we had to go to China the next day for a 2-day shoot, and I asked him if he could stay alone, to which he agreed, and thankfully in that moment, he also didn't notice any of the cameras. Well, the next day we left and stayed at a nearby hotel, and almost immediately, we saw him try to open the equipment room even though I changed the lock passcode. He went through drawers and cabinets, and then he moved to the office room and started taking bracelets and necklaces, plus one of my lenses from my desk, placing them in his bag and eventually leaving home. Well, after seeing that spectacle, I decided, okay, I'm calling the police and I'm gonna show them the footage. But a few hours later, Carl returned and acted innocent, asking why the police were there. And this is honestly the best part about this, because when the police reviewed the videos, Carl actually claimed, oh, that's AI footage, that's not real. But when they checked his phone, they found a WhatsApp message from buyers who purchased the same items for literally 50% less than the original price. And this was absolutely shocking because I never expected anything like this. But once the dust settled, Carl was taken out in handcuffs as he was arrested. Now, the court date itself hasn't been set yet, but in a weird twist of events, some of my friends think that we're jerks for the way this went down, but I don't. My girlfriend and I are just relieved that he got caught and we finally are done with this. So truly, are we really in the wrong for setting up cameras in our house to try and catch this guy in the act? Because sure, we're relieved that this is over, but we're also very frustrated. And at this point, we just don't know what to do. Okay, holy crap, there is no universe where you would ever be in the wrong here. First off, I totally understand the sentiment where it's like, okay, I've got a friend and he's struggling. I want to help him out so he can stay in our guest bedroom. Like, that's totally fine, right? And you know what? If I was in that kind of situation, I would absolutely agree. I would be more than willing to help out a friend in need or like a family member who's like down on their luck. Like, I've got no problem with that. And chances are, if I'm willing to help them out, then in my mind, they're already like a well-vetted person. They're clearly not going to cause any problems or give me any issues. So in my head, I'm thinking like, oh, cool, I've got a really nice roommate. But I swear, dude, the second you move in with someone is the second you see some true colors. You can see very quickly the exact type of person they really are. And that image is not always a good thing to see. So here you thought Carl was a good person just trying to like get by and oh, they're struggling with money. But in reality, they're robbing you blind. Now, I don't know what the laws are like in Hong Kong, but dude, this is your home. You live here, you're on the lease. So in my opinion, from like an ethical standpoint, I don't think there's anything wrong with setting up cameras just to keep an eye on your property, especially if you're concerned that your roommate might be robbing you, dude. Like, I don't care what anyone says. That's not an invasion of privacy. That's you literally trying to protect your financial investments in your job. So in my opinion, your roommate absolutely deserves to go to jail. He deserves to get arrested. And I just love the fact that he's like, oh, that's AI footage. That's not real. Like, this is the reason why AI needs to have like some kind of watermark or some kind of digital footprint where you just know for a fact that, yeah, this was created by AI and there's no way some idiot like Carl can get away with stuff they shouldn't have gotten away with. But man, am I glad he got arrested because he absolutely deserves it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Am I the Jerk and go ahead and subscribe to Am I the Genius too. They're linked down below in the description and I think you're gonna like them, dude. I love that channel and I hope you give them a chance and you subscribe because they're fantastic. Also, please leave a comment and share your stories. The best place to do that is at amithejerk.com/submit. We're always looking for those stories and like those long experiences that you have, but the comments section recently has become hilarious to me because you guys are watching and listening from all kinds of like situations and places. Like a few days ago, Daniel literally said, hey, I'm listening to this while playing Yokai Watch, which I have no idea what that is. I had to Google that just to be like, oh, that's what it is. I forgot about that. So dude, that's amazing. I love that. So that kind of like makes me think, like, leave a comment down below. Where are you right now while you're listening or watching to this? I'd love to hear what you're actively doing because it's really cool. And please don't just type I'm on the toilet because I've seen a lot of those comments and I don't know what to make of that. But anyways, back to the video and on to the next story. Am I the jerk for offering a frozen dinner to an uninvited guest at her dinner party? Because I quite literally didn't account for an extra person being there, as all the food I bought was extremely expensive and I don't really have any spares. Because now my friend's incredibly upset with me and at this point I don't know what to do. Okay, so a couple of times a year I like to throw a nice dinner party for some old friends. And this time I invited 5 people. 2 of them were couples and 1 of them was single. We've all known each other for around 15 years and we get together maybe every 3 months. I was making filet mignon and small lobster tail with 2 sides and I spent over $300. And I didn't buy extra because they're served 1 each per guest and they're extremely expensive. Now, as a complete surprise to me, the single guest brought along his new girlfriend who I had not met or even known about. Now, I was nice about it, but I was upset because I only purchased enough meat and lobster tail for the guests who were invited. I talked to the friend who brought the uninvited guest and I said that I didn't have extra food. And the filet mignon and the lobster tail isn't something that can be cut up and divided or spread out between more people. I then said, well, I've got a frozen pizza or another frozen dinner I could heat up, but that's about it. Well, when I said that, he was very upset with me and accused me of not liking his new girlfriend and trying to embarrass him. And after I said this and after their outburst, they just left the house. So seriously, was I in the wrong? Should I have cut up the filet and like lobster tails and spread it out between the extra person instead of offering a frozen meal? Honestly, I was very surprised by all of this and I'm just not sure if I made a mistake. No, you're not the jerk. This is really weird in my opinion. This person knows that, yeah, they have a fancy dinner once every 3 months, and that the people invited are probably there for specific reasons, meaning that anybody extra is not planned for. And you already spent like $300 on this meal. You went out of your way to get really expensive foods and serve it to your friends because you care about them. So for this guy to walk in and be like, here's my new girlfriend, give her some food. Like, dude, this is not a restaurant. This is not a date even. If you wanted to bring her, then you probably should have said something ahead of time. That way the original poster could have planned on it and then it would have been like, yeah, that's totally fine. Nothing's wrong here. So no, you really did your best given the circumstances. You're just trying to be a good host and like, in my opinion, your friend's being dumb and selfish. So no, you're not the jerk and this honestly really shouldn't have happened. And if anyone's to blame, it's the friend who brought their girlfriend uninvited. Today, I got some petty revenge against a CEO that I interviewed with, as I got his Wikipedia page taken down, all because the interview I had with him was so toxic, which honestly was super satisfying because I hate this guy and I'm glad it got taken down. Here's what happened. Okay, so a few years back, I had an interview with a CEO of a small company, and right from the get-go, this guy kept me waiting for an hour, he was super rude and hadn't even read my resume before meeting me, plus he was asking me questions that were not at all pertinent to the role, he tried to get personal info on former coworkers, etc. And all of this in an interview which lasted like maybe 10 minutes, after which I walked out. Now at the time, I didn't even know Glassdoor existed, but when I did discover it, I found this company's page and learned that he was universally hated by everyone who had met him. What's most interesting though is that his company had a Wikipedia page, which he had clearly created, mind you, as it originally read like a marketing brochure. Editors kept removing biased information from the page, and eventually it was whittled down to basically just a stub, saying, oh yeah, this company exists by the way. It had a notability tag applied to the page, saying that this page really doesn't meet Wikipedia's criteria for inclusion, and it should be improved if someone wants it kept around. Well, guess what? I didn't want it kept around. Screw that guy and screw his company. So I applied the proposed deletion tag to it, which if no one objects or edits the page or even removes the tag, it will lead to the page being deleted 7 days later. Well, surprise, surprise, no one objected or edited the page, and 7 days later, the page was gone. And in that moment, I experienced a small spark of like delight seeing that page completely gone. Because seriously, screw that guy and screw his company. That guy was incredibly offensive and I'm glad he got taken down. Dude, I cannot imagine trying to work for someone like that. Like seriously, he didn't even read your resume. He's talking about crap that has nothing to do with the job you're trying to get hired for. And on top of that, he made you wait an hour. Like that is crazy in my opinion. Like I would never be okay with that, dude. If you're making me wait an hour, this better be one of the most important job opportunities of my life. I can't possibly think of having to wait that long for anything like that, dude. We're talking like 6 figures and a lot of benefits, dude, and some kind of bonus structure because holy crap. At that point, it's not worth it. I'd rather just look anywhere else. So yeah, your revenge is a little bit petty, but it's also great. Screw this guy. Like, I am right there with you, dude. I can't stand people like this, where they clearly have this huge ego, and I think something like that definitely needs to be knocked down a peg or two, because this is just super inappropriate. Am I the jerk for wanting to move out of my stepmom's house after she started instigating the idea that I should be kicked out? Because now they're refusing to let me back in the house just to get my belongings from them, as I've decided to move in with my mom and move away from these people. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what's currently happening. Okay, for starters, I have never had a good relationship with my stepmom. She was very angry a lot over things that I never saw as a huge issue, or she would just get angry with things that my mother said and would then take it out on me. Like, don't get me wrong, I knew I was not her favorite, and I was okay with it. They all fought for custody, and my mom fought back, and they started telling me that my mom was manipulating me into wanting to see them, and I believed it since I was just a child. But now that I'm older, I just don't think it's true. My mom hasn't been the best either, but she has been working on herself to try and get better for me. Well, on Friday, I stood up for myself when my stepmom started talking about things that did not matter, and stuff that happened years ago. She was literally talking about how clothing she purchased should go to my sister instead of my cousin at my mom's place and all this other crap. But basically, she was upset that I didn't agree that was right, when I never did say that or even the opposite. But I did let her know that was not the case, and then I moved on. I added on to this, and I said that I was going to try and drive back from my vacation to get to my mom's birthday, which has accidentally been scheduled over my stepmom's birthday. And my god, she freaked out and left. And sure, I understood because it was her birthday and all, but I didn't think that she would have taken it out on me. Then after that, I left to go to my mom's place minutes afterwards. I worked that Saturday, and my sister came in after a parade and told me that she had overheard my stepmom talking to my dad on the phone about kicking me out. So I decided, after already feeling not safe to go back due to her anger, that I'm just going to stay home with my mom instead of going with them to my grandparents' house, because I didn't want to cause a scene with my hysterical crying. I then decided that I was going to leave since they did not want me at the house anymore. And you know what? I would just live with my mom. So I texted them, letting them know that I was going to get my stuff from their house. When I arrived at the house, they were not home. And in fact, they removed the key that they usually leave out for me to use to get into the house. Plus they locked all the doors. Then afterwards, I was sent a text about how, oh, I'm not in a good mental state of mind right now. You would never do this ever. With them saying, oh, any claims you're hearing are just completely false. But all of that changed once I gave them proof of what she said. And eventually she took it back, saying that I was not mentally stable to stay there and that they were considering it. I then asked for my things back once more, but they refused. And then added on that they would be filing charges against money that I had accidentally spent with their card instead of my own, and also added that they would not be opening the door to me or a police officer. I have clothing and shoes and belongings and makeup that I've bought, as well as stuff that my mom bought that they are not allowing me to get. I also have a cat there that was a gift to me in 2020 that my stepmom did purchase for, but said I was taking once I moved out that they're refusing to give me as well. So seriously, am I the jerk for calling their bluff on wanting to kick me out? Am I doing this too early? I mean, honestly, I'm at a loss right now and I just don't know what to do. Okay, first off, your stepmom sounds like a nightmare. That is entirely obvious, and I think it's important to say that out loud, because you are not the crazy one here. Your stepmom sucks, and your dad is not any better for letting it go this far. But my god, the fact that she's trying to kick you out of the house, saying, oh, she's not mentally well, when it doesn't sound like you've done anything wrong is so weird. I bet this stepmom just wants to be your mom so bad, but she's pissed off because you prefer your real mom over her. And it's like, dude, there's no winning with this lady. She will never be satisfied with you. But I will say, if I was in your shoes and I found out that, yeah, my parents want to kick me out, my stepmom is conspiring against me, they want to remove me from the home, I probably would have gone about this in a much different way personally. I would have kept my cards close to my chest and I would have started moving stuff over to my mom's house. I'm talking clothing, belongings, pretty much anything that I could think of, and get it over to her place and be like, hey, let's start this process now. Because sure, I don't think there's anything wrong with getting ahead of the curve and being like, okay, I'm moving out, I'm not staying with you. It sounds like your mom would be a way better option than these people, especially your stepmom. She sounds so awful. But that's just what I would do. And honestly, this whole scenario just really sucks for you. It's so unfair, it's not something you deserve at all, and your stepmom is absolutely, from the sounds of it, entirely to blame. Am I overreacting for refusing to give my sister any of the money I inherited after she quite literally humiliated me on Facebook? Because right now I'm still pissed off about this situation and I just don't know if I'm making a mistake. Here's basically what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female and I lost my grandmother about 6 months ago. We were very close and I can boldly say she raised me because my parents were either busy with work or they were having a marriage crisis most of the time. And I spent just about every weekend at her house. And you know what? I eventually got used to living with her. Before she passed away, she left me $55,000 and other valuable items. Now, my sister got some jewelry and we were both happy at the time, but after a few weeks, she kept making jokes about the inheritance we both got, jokingly saying, "Oh, I wonder what you told her that made her give you that amount. Are you sure you didn't manipulate her?" And she said this with a smile on her face. And normally I just laugh and say, "Oh, I've been a good girl, you know." And this became like a once in a while discussion till we finally got into an argument one day, and she told me that I really manipulated her into changing her will. The funny thing is, I didn't even know I inherited anything until after the funeral. Well, things got ugly really fast. She kept making and sharing posts on her Instagram story, talking about family members who steal from the elderly, and she also refused to speak to me at family gatherings. When she was eventually asked why she was ignoring my greetings, she said I had pressured our grandmother while she had dementia into changing her will. And then she just turns around and makes it look like it was some kind of joke. Mind you, my grandmother was mentally sharp all the way until the very end. Now, most of the family didn't want to get involved since they're tired of our silly quarrels, so they just kind of chalked this up as like a sibling thing. Well, about 2 months ago, my sister finally reached out. She apologized and admitted that she had let her grief and jealousy get the better of her. And I gotta say that I was really shocked that she apologized. That was like a first I've ever seen. Like, we normally do not apologize to each other. We just get talking again like nothing ever happened. So this was very strange to me. Now, at this point, I said, okay, it's fine, but I don't have the strength to rebuild any kind of like trust or bond with her because it will surely take time. Well, fast forward to a week ago, and she called me complaining about things not going well, talking about, oh, her husband lost his job. They're 3 months behind on their mortgage. And of course, it led up to her saying, hey, could you give me $20,000 from the inheritance money? And you know what? I told her no immediately. I wasn't even trying to like get back at her or anything like that. I just couldn't ignore everything that she's accused me of. She tried to give me a bad name in the family over this same inheritance money. So why does she suddenly need my help now? After all these months of not speaking with me and after calling me a thief? Are you kidding me? Well, our parents think that I'm being vindictive in a way and said that my grandma would have wanted me to help family regardless of what happened, saying, oh, you should be the bigger person and let go of the past. She is still your sister through and through. But now I'm wondering if I'm letting my pride get in the way or what. So seriously, am I overreacting? Like, should I just give her this money? Because I really don't know what to do. Okay, I want to make this very clear. I know this is going to sound mean and cruel, but dude, you don't owe her anything. I wouldn't give her a single penny, dude. There's no way that's appropriate. Because for me, this all boils down to reputation. She tried to ruin your reputation, dude. She tried to make you look like the scum of the earth. Oh yeah, you manipulate old people so they give you money. Our grandma had dementia and you stole that money. Like, dude, are you kidding me right now? I would lose my mind on her if she did that. There would be no limit to how pissed off I would be. Like, I'm not kidding. But also on top of that, this proves like once and for all, she's not sorry and she only apologized so she could get some money from you. That is literally all this is about. And it's so funny because she thought that her apologizing would be more than enough for you to be like, oh yeah, I'll give you half the inheritance money, as if you forgot the months of torture that she put you through. In fact, I bet you those Instagram posts are still online right now. Seriously, to the original poster, I say look it up and try to find out like, are those still up? Because I bet you they are. So no, don't give her anything. She doesn't deserve it. She's not sorry. And if she could do it all over again, she would continue to call you awful names. Am I the jerk for not being a bridesmaid? Because truly, the woman who's getting married is a terrible person and someone I don't want to be associated with. Because after I said no and things kind of fell out of control, now it seems like her entire family is turning against her, confronting her for the first time for all the terrible things that she's done to them. And at this point, I don't know if this is my fault or not, and I just don't know if I'm the jerk. Here's what's currently happening. Okay, so my best friend's brother is getting married, and I've known my best friend ever since the first grade. So I was kind of like adopted by association by her family. I was over their home all the time, and I'm still invited to their family events all the time as well. For example, I just joined them for their 4th of July celebrations, and my best friend has literally known me longer than she's known her own younger brother. Now, the youngest brother's getting married, and he's marrying a woman who I will call Claire. And let me tell you something, Claire is not a girl's girl. She fawns over the guys and will make backhanded compliments to put down the women around her just so she can look better. And all of the women in the family do not care for her. In fact, my best friend's mother, who is a lovely lady, has even been having a rough time with it. My best friend even tries to avoid her as much as possible, and I've seen her behavior in action. But the most recent issue has been the bridesmaid for her wedding. She only has one, and she needs 2 to match the number of groomsmen. She asked my best friend, and she agreed. But on top of that, she has not been able to find anyone else. And dude, everybody knows why. It's because she's a jerk to women. So of course she doesn't have any other girlfriends. She also refuses to have guys as her bridesmaids, so she's basically stuck. And the last I heard, she even asked asked her boss and she was turned down again. Well, eventually I got a call from her and she asked me to be her bridesmaid. And I told her no politely. And I thought that really would be the end of it, but of course it wasn't. She then ended up calling my husband to ask me to do it. Well, my husband then just handed me the phone and we got into an argument after that. It went on for a while and in the end, I told her that it's not my fault she doesn't have any female friends. And then I hung up after that. I'm now being told to apologize by my best friend's youngest brother, but you know what? I'm not. And it seems to have caused more of the women in her family to speak out. And now it's become a huge mess. I was even told by my best friend's mom to not worry about it, that this blow up was going to happen pretty much eventually and there was nothing anyone could do about it. But seriously, regardless, am I the jerk here? Like, am I the problem in this situation for like speaking up and standing my ground? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, dude, if you turned her down once and you did it politely at that, only for her to then turn around and be like, fine, I'll call her husband, and try to like go around you in making this decision, like holy crap, at that point the gloves are off. She has no business calling your husband. She has no business trying to like force you to be a bridesmaid. Like holy crap, the way she's acting is insane and so inappropriate. Because in my opinion, in life, if you're gonna be a jerk to everybody, then don't expect anybody to want to be friends with you. That's just the way it works, man. So no, you're not the jerk. I think you were just like the spark that lit off this explosion in the family, and any results of this bullcrap is absolutely not your fault. Because at the end of the day, this lady's been doing all of these things to herself, meaning that she's the one that caused these problems and not you. My entitled brother and his fiance kicked me out of their bridal party after I got engaged in secret, claiming that I was taking away from their wedding and that I was ruining their big day. But then things escalate from there as my brother demands that I still cover the cost of the wedding, even though they kicked me out of the wedding party. And now after saying no to them, they're calling me selfish and saying that I'm holding a grudge against them, causing my family to become split down the middle on who's wrong and who's right. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I have always been close with my brother, who we will call Tom, and we've had a great relationship. When he got engaged to his fiance, who we will call Sarah, I was honored to be asked to be a bridesmaid. They've been planning a big wedding for over a year, and I've been heavily involved in helping organize things and even offered to cover some of the cost since my brother and his fiance were on a tight budget. Well, a few months ago, my partner proposed to me and I said yes. We kept it low-key to not take away from Tom's upcoming wedding since we have been together for years and have an established marriage-like life together. However, after announcing our engagement, Sarah became very cold towards me. Tom later told me that Sarah was upset, feeling like I stole her spotlight by getting engaged before their wedding. A week later, Tom and Sarah called me and said that because of the timing of my engagement, it would be best if I stepped down as a bridesmaid. Sarah wanted to focus on her, and apparently my new engagement was too distracting. Well, I was hurt, but I agreed to step down to keep the peace. Well, here's where things really escalated. Tom recently asked if I was still willing to cover the wedding costs I had previously offered to pay for a significant amount of money, and when he made this request, I was shocked. But even still, I politely declined, saying that I didn't feel comfortable contributing anymore since I was no longer in the bridal party and I felt very hurt by the situation. Tom then got really upset and called me selfish, saying I'm ruining his big day. Sarah even accused me of holding a grudge and trying to punish them, and now my family is split. Some think that I should still help out since I initially offered, while others agree that it's unfair to expect me to contribute, especially after getting kicked out of the wedding party. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Tom and Sarah are out of their mind, as well as any other family members, if they really think that you should cough up any money after getting kicked out of the wedding party. But not even that. You got kicked out over the stupidest reasons on planet Earth. You mean to tell me they kicked you out of their wedding all because you got engaged, and somehow this is distracting from their stupid wedding? Like, what is going on? How does your engagement take away from their wedding? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life, and that is so unfair. Like, that is the dumbest reason anyone's ever had for kicking somebody out of their wedding party. But then for Tom to turn around and be like, hey, by the way, even though you're not in the wedding party, we need that money you offered us before. You're still gonna pay it, right? Like, what in the world is going on right now? That is insane in my opinion. You tried to politely decline, but these people are like, wow, you're holding a grudge. I can't believe you. Like, this is some like next level gaslighting because this is insane. There is seriously no good excuse to act this way. So no, of course you're not the jerk. These people are out of their minds if they expect you to give them money, and anyone who would even begin to possibly agree with them, in my opinion, is completely delusional. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Would I be the jerk for not paying for my friend's flight home? Because right now, as we're planning a road trip up to Northern California, everything is slowly falling apart, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and my friends and I are road tripping to Northern California soon for a long weekend. The road trip will be about a 10.5-hour drive. 12 of us are attending the trip, and we're all around the same age. There's 2 couples, including myself and my boyfriend. We're all driving together from the same city, except for 3 people who are going by themselves. Only myself and one of my other friends have a car. So I'm taking 5 people in car A, and my friend is taking 4 people in car B. In car A, we have myself, my boyfriend, my friend who has met everyone once or twice, but is mainly my friend, and a second to that is the closest to my roommates. And the last 2 people to round out the car are my 2 other roommates. Car B has the driver, who we will call Becky, who doesn't live in the same city as us, but is driving to our city to pick us up and drive to Florida as part of a longer travel period that she's taking. My other friend in the car, who we will call Lisa, who is also very close with Becky, as well as 2 other friends who we will call Ben and Daisy. They're the other couple, and Daisy is roommates with Lisa. Now, the cars are divided pretty logically by household plus the people we're closest to. We're also all in agreement on how we're gonna split gas, so there's no drama there. However, Becky and Lisa, after our trip, plan to go on a second vacation of their own, meaning Becky's car will not be returning to our city, and her passengers that need to go home, namely Ben and Daisy, are going to be stranded. Becky is willing to drive them halfway home to an airport, where flights will cost about $150 to get home. So I told them, while I can't fit them in my car on the way back because it only has 5 seats, I'm happy to take their luggage so they don't have to incur any extra fees. Well, Daisy is upset, feeling like the situation is awful for her and Ben, and this is all because they just so happen to be placed in Becky's car, so now they have to take on extra costs. We're going to discuss it this week, but possible solutions have been either splitting the flight tickets across everybody going back, or doing some sort of drawing early of who gets to go back in the car versus who's flying. Now, I personally don't think myself or the passengers should be responsible for the cost of the flights. My passengers are coming with me due to their closeness to me, and they're the people I want to spend the long drive with. Now, as a side note, I was also invited to the trip with Becky and Lisa, but I felt too guilty to strand my 4 passengers. Well, Daisy is getting increasingly upset about the situation over text messaging, so I know it's going to be a tense situation. She is quick to anger and to blame others, and has been already butting heads with Lisa recently over roommate problems. Daisy is the kind of person to hold a grudge, and if we made them pay for a flight, she may make snide comments about it throughout the trip. As her roommate, Lisa feels a lot of anxiety about it, and is trying to appease her, but I want to stand my ground and protect my passengers. I'm just not sure the best way to split the cost and the logistics of returning home, while also maintaining the peace. So would I be the jerk if I decided to not pay for my friend's flight home? What should I do? No, you would not be the jerk, because why would this be your problem? Seriously, first of all, this all needs to be figured out like way in advance. Like, this already sounds like an absolute mess, and this would be plenty of grounds for me to basically back out and be like, okay, I don't think I want to be a part of this. Like, seriously, this sounds insane in my opinion. Because here's my problem with this entire situation. You are not the one abandoning these people on the side of the road to go do some extra trip. That literally falls on the shoulders of Becky and Lisa. So if they really want to help their friends out, they shouldn't look around and be like, who's going to help pay for this? And instead look in their own pockets and put the money in for them. And also, why is Ben and Daisy okay with just getting stranded in Northern California? Like, this is so stupid across the board. Everybody's so dumb in this situation. More specifically, literally everybody in car B. Like, if I knew I was going on a road trip and the person driving us there was like, okay, I can take you halfway, then I guess I'm just gonna leave and go to Florida, I would be like, oh, that's cool, I'm not going anymore. Screw that. There's just no way that's happening. Like, at that rate, you're basically walking into getting stranded, and there's no reason to do that. Plus, you're literally taking on extra costs by being like, okay, I'll just get a flight home. So for anybody outside of car B to be like, who's gonna help pay for this? Like, that alone is so ridiculous, it's not even funny. Because this is quite literally not your problem, and Becky and Lisa need to step up and be better friends. My mom is upset because I want to work a job that requires me to work weekends, resulting in her not being able to use my car. And right now, I'm wondering if I'm the one that's being selfish in this situation, because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I currently live with my mom, and back in June, I got laid off from my job job, which also covered housing. It sucked because I really loved that job and it was rent-free. And while I had already lined up a place to live, my mom offered me her home. Now, while I was traveling for work, there was no need for me to have my car, so I left it with my mother who doesn't have a car. She normally wouldn't need a car, but came into the care of her 2 grandchildren, which also required her to re-enter the workforce. She was lucky to land a mainly remote job, but it does require her to come into the office once a week. Now, I've been working my work schedule around her schedule, along with my school schedule as I'm becoming an EMS. I feel like I've been pretty compromisable with her. There have been times where I've given her my schedule weeks in advance, and I've had to change things last minute just to accommodate some stuff that she had to do. While I do live with her rent-free, I do help out as well. I do chores around the house, I take my nieces to and from school as needed, I take them to clubs, and other things that might be needed. I also do grocery runs and errands for my mom. My mom constantly talks about how grateful she is for letting me use the car, and how much money she's saving by letting her use the car. And as a side note, it is my car. I pay all the insurance, included her insurance as well. But the thing that happened that prompted me even writing this is that I was promised a promotion at my current day job, and 2 times now it was given to someone else. So I decided I was going to look for a new job. I told a friend I was looking for a job, and he so happened to be a manager somewhere and was looking for someone, and offered me a job where I would make more than I would have made with that promotion. But the thing is, it was Thursday through Sunday, which I didn't mind. I actually preferred working weekends because I don't like going out when everything is crowded. I told my mom, and I thought she would be excited because I'd be doing a job that I'd actually like to do, and I'd get way more money, plus I would have to work less. But instead, she started talking about how I would be working all weekend, and she didn't outright say it, but she was commenting a lot of negative things. She would say stuff like, "I guess you'll have the car all weekend, huh? I guess we can't do anything in the weekend. Better plan all my shopping trips on the weekdays after work. I guess I can just walk. It'll be hard to take the kids to the movies. I guess we can always just Uber there." And the worst part is that she always ends by saying, "Oh, I'm not saying this to deter you from taking the job or anything like that. We'll be fine. We could just Uber everywhere." But if that was the case, then why do you keep making comments? I honestly have no idea if I'm in the wrong or if I'm overreacting. I thought it was fair considering I'm living with her rent-free, but I feel like I'm getting taken advantage of and being gaslit. What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, your mom is a guilt-tripping jerk, because that is all this is. She's being passive-aggressive on purpose to get under your skin and making these snide remarks by being like, "Oh yeah, I guess we'll just walk there." And in my opinion, people who act like this are seriously some of the most annoying people to deal with on the planet. Like, this is such an immature way of discussing anything, or even beginning to have a conversation of any kind. Like, seriously, if she has a problem with you taking the car, then she should speak up and say something like an adult, and not do this weird routine where she's acting like a teenager and she's like, "Oh no, it's fine, I'm not mad. Please take the job, we'll just walk everywhere." So you know what? If she wants to act like that and wants to be petty and passive-aggressive, then seriously, let her do that. And best of all, you should take her at her face value. If she's saying she'll walk everywhere and use an Uber to get around, then guess what? Congratulations, that's exactly what you're gonna do. If she's saying that this shouldn't deter you from taking away from your job and that she's going to Uber everywhere, then guess what? You should go ahead with your job. If she's gonna be immature, then congratulations, you're gonna take her at face value. And I think that's the only way it's gonna get through that no, these stupid tactics are not gonna work. At least that's what I would do if I was in your situation. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance that only you know about, so you should do exactly what's best for you and your situation. We don't know everything, but this is something I've personally done and I've loved every second of it, because it throws their passive-aggressive petty garbage right back in their face, and they realize really quickly, oh wait, this isn't working. They're not feeling bad about the things I'm saying, but they're taking it at face value. And of course you can read between the lines, I'm sure you know exactly what's going on, but if she's incapable of having a conversation, then seriously, that's on her and not you. So truly, I hope this all works out for you, because you deserve that job, regardless of the petty garbage that your mom tries to throw your way. My aunt says that I don't have a choice about going to church, and is now demanding that I have to show up, regardless of my feelings about going back to church. And right now, I feel very confused, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my track record with setting boundaries is definitely not a good one, but lately, my patience with my family and their ability to walk all over me is growing very thin, and I'm not trying to explode and drag some poor souls down with me if they don't deserve it, so I need you all to keep it straight with me. Now, for some context that is very important, I'm a 24-year-old pansexual female who was raised in a homophobic and fear-mongering Christian household. I also have a 24-year-old female partner of almost 10 years. My immediate family knows about my partner and I, and for the most part, or at least least on the surface, it isn't a problem. So here's the deal. My 23-year-old cousin called me yesterday to invite me to their prayer group for that night, and for simplicity's sake, I'm just gonna call it church. Now, the short answer is that I told her that I'm not going because I'm currently healing from my past religious experiences and prefer building my spiritual connection solo. Well, she responded saying that she thinks I misinterpreted what she was asking and assured me that the church wasn't judgmental, which again wasn't my problem with the idea. My cousin then asked to get on a call, but then told me that she would call me back in a bit since she was on the phone with her mom. Well, that call came when the moon had already settled in the sky, and my tolerance for BS was at its weakest. Not to mention my bonnet and I were already comfortable, so I didn't answer. And when the reinforcement calls started pouring in from her and her mom with the same intensity as the feds at someone's door, I of course didn't answer, and my partner did the same. The next morning, my aunt calls and pretty much enters the chat by saying, "I want you to do something for me, and you don't really have a choice, like you just can't say no." She then tells me that she wants me to come to their church this Friday, but in that corporate America way, where she says it with a smile and hides her passive aggression with a laugh as if she's joking. She even says to me, "And I don't want to hear that garbage that you tried to tell your cousin," which, by the way, that garbage is me trying to explain my point of view, and that really pissed me off. Anyways, I listened to her go on and on about how the church is non-judgmental and would be a great experience for me, while continuously trying to guide my answer to a yes and ignoring my ranging answers of me saying no or I'll think about it. She only lets me go after I pretty much had to respond to everything she said by saying, "Okay, I'll think about it." But she made it clear that I had already said "see you at 6" in her mind by the time the call had ended. So, dear internet, this is where you come in. See, the way my aunt talked about the church actually has me interested in going, if only to at least check it out. My problem is that I don't feel like my feelings aren't important. I know it wasn't my aunt's intention, but to ignore and straight up disrespect my reason for calling them BS without even giving me a chance to explain was not up to code with me. At this point, I'm considering not going just to drive home the point that when I set a boundary, I don't care what you think about it. It is my boundary. But on the other hand, I actually want to go. I just don't want to go on what feels like their terms. I'm afraid that if I don't go, I might be letting my pride and ego keep me away from a potentially amazing experience. But if I do go, I might be allowing this behavior from my aunt to slide, even if I sit her down and tell her that I don't appreciate how that conversation went. So internet, please put on your cape and help me. What is the best way to set those boundaries, but still have that experience that I decided that I want? What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, you need to not let these people walk all over you. I don't care for a second how your aunt made this church sound. Like, they could be handing out gold bars in the parking lot, and that still would not make me want to go. Because you're letting her manipulation completely excuse the fact that she treated you like garbage not even, 10 minutes into the conversation? She didn't want to hear any of your excuses, and she didn't care about what you said. And the fact that she kept pressuring you to be like, "Okay, we'll see you at 6, you have to be there, you have no choice." Like, that, in my opinion, is super toxic and not okay. Like, seriously, that is really messed up in my opinion. Because now the original poster is questioning everything. Like, they said no probably multiple times in that conversation, enough to make anybody go nuts. But this aunt is like, "No, you have to go," and then probably just steamroll the conversation until you said, "Okay, I'll think about it." So in my opinion, I don't think you actually want to go, but instead you're just going along with it so she'll leave you alone, which is manipulation at its finest. Like, I would not ignore that. So in my opinion, no matter how these people made this sound, I would never ignore the fact that she completely ignored everything that you said initially. She didn't care about your experience, and that, in my opinion, is the biggest red flag that you could possibly look for. Am I the jerk for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding, all because she wanted me to be a squirrel wrangler at her wedding? Here's what happened. Okay, so buckle up because this one is absolutely insane. I'm a 28-year-old male, and I've been best friends with someone who we will call Emily for over 15 years. We've been through everything together, and when she asked me to be in her wedding party, I was, of course, thrilled, or at least I thought. At first, everything seemed super normal. There were tux fittings and cake tasting, just the usual wedding stuff. But then, one night during a group Zoom meeting to discuss wedding logistics, Emily dropped an announcement that truly blew my mind. She said to the group, "Oh, and Jake, you're going to be the official squirrel wrangler at the wedding." Now, I thought it was a joke and I laughed, but apparently no, she was completely serious. Apparently, Emily and her fiance are really into squirrels, which is news to me, by the way, and decided that instead of a flower girl or a ring bearer, they want trained squirrels to run down the aisle with the rings tied to their little backs. And guess who's responsible for wrangling these squirrels and ensuring they perform this weird rodent relay without any chaos? So yes, if you guessed me, you would be right. I calmly asked Emily why, out of all the people at the wedding, she wanted me, a person with zero squirrel wrangling experience to handle this task. She told me it was because I had the calming energy the squirrels would need, and also she didn't trust anyone else to do it right. And I mean, what does that even mean? At this point, I thought maybe she hired some sort of squirrel trainer and I would just be assisting in some kind of way. But no, Emily straight up handed me a binder full of squirrel facts, a list of local parks where I could practice capturing them, and some sunflower seeds. And when she did this, I was floored. I told her there was no way I could do this. I am not Steve Irwin, and the idea of trying to corral wild squirrels on her big day seemed like a recipe for disaster. I pictured the chaos in front of me: squirrels scattering around, rings lost in the bushes, guests screaming as squirrels ran up their legs. I mean, this would be a complete disaster. Well, Emily flipped out. She said this was her dream wedding, and I was ruining it by refusing to be the squirrel wrangler. She even started tearing up, saying how she trusted me more than anyone to make sure the squirrels delivered the ring safely. And at this point, I couldn't tell if I was in a nightmare or a fever dream. After a long while of awkward silence, I told her I wasn't comfortable with this bizarre responsibility and suggested we hire an actual professional if she was that set on using squirrels. Emily called me selfish and accused me of not being a real friend, and said if I couldn't handle such a small task, then maybe I shouldn't even come to the wedding. So you know what? I'm not going. And now our mutual friends are blowing up my phone, saying that I'm overreacting and that it's just one quirky task. But I'm sorry, wrangling squirrels at a wedding seems like something that could land me on the local news, and not in a good way. So am I the jerk for refusing to do this for my friend? What should I do? No, there's no way you're the jerk in this situation. Is your friend seriously getting upset because you don't want to be like the wildlife expert of her stupid wedding? How in the world can she possibly be taking offense to this? It literally doesn't make any sense. What she's asking you, by the way, is literally insane. She wants you to tame wild animals before her wedding and seriously expect you to somehow control them, all because you have a calming energy. It's like, what are you talking about? That is not how this works. The second those squirrels are let free, they are going to run around causing absolute chaos. Like, Emily does know those are wild animals, right? They're not something you can tame overnight, especially for a wedding. Like, at that point, just for the safety of everybody there, having a professional who literally does this for a living would be like the best thing for everyone. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for turning this down. If I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. There is no way anybody's gonna get me to wrangle squirrels, and you should definitely not have to do that in the slightest. An entitled Karen treats me like garbage at my customer service job by constantly trying to work the system in order to get a refund or some kind of store credit. But after I found out where she works, I decided to get some much needed revenge by humiliating her at her job in the same way that she's done at mine. Here's what happened. So I used to work a customer service job at a dispensary, and we had this one customer that was just a cranky, miserable woman. She would come in acting all sweet, say hi to all of us, ask for her product, and then the show would begin. Here's an example of how these transactions typically went. She would say something like, "This isn't what I ordered. Go get what I ordered right now." Then the employee would say, "Ma'am, you specifically requested this product." But this entitled Karen would say, "No, I said I wanted the pineapple gummies. Now go get them right now." We would then go get the thing that she said she wanted, and she would just complain about lazy employees, and then be all smiles again, and then she would pay and leave, only to then be right back in the store a half hour later with any excuse that she could think of. Maybe the package was open when she got it and the product was melted together, or maybe there was a hair in the jar, or the packaging smelled like chlorine. Any stupid excuse she could pull from her rear end just to look for some kind of refund or a store credit. If you could think of it, she would probably try it and use it. And every single time she came in, this is exactly how it went. But then one day, I went to a gas station to fill up my car while I was in the next town over. And wouldn't you guess it? This entitled Karen was a cashier at the gas station. So I of course asked for a pack of cigarettes. She grabbed the pack and I said, "That is not what I asked for. I asked for a different brand." So she would then go grab the other brand, and then I would double down and I say, "That's not what I wanted. I wanted the other one." Well, after she tried to grab another third brand of cigarettes, I would interrupt her and say, "What are you doing? I'm just in here to pay for my gas." Now, the long stare she gave me was almost enough to make me regret starting stuff with her, but she knew as an employee that she could get in real trouble if she snapped at me. So she forced a smile, put my cash in the register, and I went on my merry way. But I wasn't done. I came right back in 5 minutes later, and I looked at her and I said, "Excuse me, I only spent this amount of money on gas, but you took all of my money. Where is my change?" Now, at this point, she is obviously super pissed off, but what was she gonna do about it? Yeah, that's right, absolutely nothing. So she tries very hard and fails to politely explain to me that the gas gas cost the amount I had given her, and she couldn't give me the difference. So in a voice that almost sounded exactly like hers, I complained about all these lazy employees. I gave a sweet smile, and then I said goodbye, walking out, just like she does every single time she comes into my store. Now, she didn't learn her lesson for a while, and came back in a few more times with her same old routine. But then I recruited a coworker, and we both went back to that gas station separately a few times and did our new routine. After trying and failing to file a complaint, she stopped coming in entirely, and balance was finally restored in the universe. Now, I don't work at the dispensary anymore, but hitting back at her in the way that she did to my coworkers honestly makes me smile all these years later. Yeah, this is a classic case of mess around and find out. She seriously would walk into this store and make such a fuss, all with the main objective of getting a refund or some kind of store credit. Like, I can't stand people who try to work the system like this, because it really is just so disgusting. And she herself works in customer service. Like, come on. You would think that she knows better. Like, that's the one person who should at least be reasonable in some kind of way. But you know what? Karma is a wonderful thing, because I absolutely love the way you and your friends handled this situation. You not only found out where she worked, but you gave her the exact same treatment that she's been giving you. Like, that is brilliant. That is so smart, because hopefully it shined a light on how toxic she's been acting at your store. So good for you for getting this well-needed revenge, because this entitled Karen absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for demanding that my niece or her parents pay me back for the hundreds of dollars of perfume that she stole from my house? Because right now, I'm still pissed off about this, and I really need to know if I'm making the right call. Here's what happened. So I have a perfume collection that I started when I was a teenager slinging burritos as my first job. I have over 400 bottles at this point, and I take great pride in my collection and I use it. I'm also happy to give people samples of most of my bottles and let them sample a spray or two, and even give some bottles as gifts. But what I have a massive issue with is my 17-year-old niece coming into my home under the guise of walking my dog, using these bottles on her own, and then selling the samples to her little friends. She thinks that because I have so many bottles, I wouldn't notice some missing or getting massive dents in them. Well, little Miss Entrepreneur failed to realize that her private Instagram account wasn't friends only or whatever, and I saw each and every story with each price and sample that she had. I tallied that up and got a pretty good estimate based on cost per ounce. Thankfully, she mostly picked the TikTok famous perfumes and didn't go for the more rare and niche perfumes. She did snatch an entire 2.5 ounce bottle, which runs about $300 at most retailers, as well as full bottles of perfume you can only get at Sephora. Now, petty or not, I printed out the entire list of what she had taken, including the price estimate, and handed it over to my sister, who is her mother. I said that I expect to be paid back in full, and of course, her sneaky idiot self is never allowed in my home ever again. Well, my sister got super pissed off with me, going on about how my niece is just a kid, and kids make mistakes and all this other garbage. And I said, yes, kids make mistakes, and this is a great way for my niece to learn from hers. Their argument is that now the money she was going to use for a car has to go towards paying me back. But I literally don't care. She is lucky that I have no interest in involving the police or having any kind of small claims or anything like that. So am I the jerk for doing this despite the fact that she's a 17-year-old teenager? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, because your sister is completely wrong. She is not a kid. She is on the verge of becoming an adult. She is 17 years old and she absolutely knew what she was doing. Like, this wasn't a mistake. This was a calculated decision. She stole your property, whatever that property is, and she sold so much of it that now she can buy a car. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, that is not gonna happen. You don't get to just steal from me and then expect to have some kind of reward from it. That would be like going to Sephora itself and doing the same thing and being like, well, what do you mean? I'm just a kid. I make mistakes. The same consequences you would get from stealing from Sephora absolutely should apply in this situation. But in my opinion, I think you're letting her off easy by saying I'm not going to involve the police, which if I was in your shoes, I definitely would. But the original poster makes it very clear that they're not going to do that, so that's basically off the table. But regardless, you are not the jerk for holding her responsible for her actions. Because truly, if she's going to make mistakes like this, then she should absolutely, quite literally, pay the consequences. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that he made a dumb decision and I don't need to fix it for him? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old male and my mom passed away when I was 5 years old. And I do remember her, but just not amazingly well. When I was 7, my dad started dating again and he met a woman that we will call Mary. At first, I was upset about Mary and my dad dating, and I didn't want to meet her and I gave her a hard time. I told her I didn't want her replacing my mom. She gave me space to let out all my feelings at her, and then she reassured me she was not here to take my mom's place. She told me that she really liked my dad and wanted to really like me too, but she didn't have to be my mom for us to like each other. At first, I wasn't sure if I believed her, but she won me over and we got along really well. She even lived with us for a year, but when I was 10, my dad broke up with Mary and said she wasn't trying hard enough to fill the role of mom for me and that I needed a mom. I told him I didn't want another mom and that I loved Mary, saying that she was the best. Mary was blindsided by it because things had been so good, and I don't think my dad had said it would be a deal breaker. Well, within a few months, he met his wife, who we will call Stacy. Stacy was a single mom with a 2-year-old daughter. I was 11 by then, and Stacy was very on board to be my new mom, and I was not. I said it so many times that I didn't want a new mom. I wouldn't call someone else mom. I miss Mary and wouldn't give Stacy a chance if she tried to take over mom's place. Well, I was just completely ignored, and Dad and Stacy got married when I was 12. After my 16th birthday, which was June, my dad kind of realized I was serious about not wanting a mom and not giving Stacy a chance to be my mom. She has tried so hard too. She has tried to make me love her and her daughter, but I'm not here to get a new mom. I'm not open to it, and it's something my dad now knows. It's caused a lot of strain with him and Stacy because Stacy found out that I sent a direct message to Mary recently and apologized for Dad and thanked her for being awesome and saying that I miss her. Stacy said that she can't even get me to say that I like her. I told her it's because I don't, that I don't like people who don't listen or think that they can make me do things like them be my new mom. Stacy then said that she was expecting and was promised a family for her daughter, and she was definitely not promised this. Dad then pulled me aside a few nights ago and told me he now realized I was serious about the things I said, and he realized I loved Mary, but that he really wanted the best for me, and someone who wouldn't even try to be my mom wasn't it. He told me Stacy would be such a good second mom to me, and I could have a sister if I give this a chance. He said his marriage could end if we can't pull together as a family, but I told him he made a dumb decision and I would not fix it for him. I said it was fine if Mary just wasn't the one for him or if their relationship changed, but I loved her because she wasn't my mom. She was someone I could trust and love, and that my dislike for Stacy wasn't changing, and neither was my unwillingness to get a new mom. Well, my dad then said that I don't get to speak to him like that, and that this was completely out of line. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all because with all things considered, the way your dad's going about just dismissing Stacy's behavior is really annoying and so frustrating. He is dancing around the issue that you don't want another mom. You've made it very clear from very early on that you don't want another mom in your life. You don't want to replace the one that you had, and Mary really was a good fit. And sure, if Mary and your dad didn't get along and it wasn't meant to be, then that's fine. But it really seems like he only broke up with her because he was like, oh wow, you're not being a good mother to my kid. But it's like, wait a second, what are you doing? This is not what you wanted. And sure, Stacy probably has good intentions, but it seems like she's being very overbearing and just going way above what she should be doing. So with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk because the way your dad is acting, in my opinion, is very inappropriate. Am I the jerk for pretty much telling my friend I told you so after he got into a car crash? Because after dealing with their scrutiny and their awful comments towards my driving over the years, they're offended that I decided to point out the karma that is sitting right in front of us. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old male, and I am the only one with a car, so I was the one driving everybody around. I had a set of rules that everyone had issues with, such as everybody needing to have a seatbelt on, no eating or drinking in the car, no distracting me while I'm driving, and no blocking my blind spot by sitting weirdly. Now, everyone constantly grilled me for my rules and made fun of me for following the law. And yes, I will admit that I miss my exit a quarter of the time, but I won't cut off other drivers or reverse just to save a few minutes. One of my friends even said, if I had a car, I wouldn't drive like a grandma like you. You suck at driving. Well, suffice to say, I was relieved when one of my friends finally got a car and could be the group driver. At first, everyone roasted me in group chats and in real life, raving about how much more fun it was now that I wasn't driving. 5 months after getting his license and car, my friend told everyone in the group chat that he had been in a car crash and his car was totaled. He shared the dashcam footage and genuinely thought that he wasn't at fault, calling the other driver a dumb typical female driver. The footage showed him going 75 kilometers an hour in a 50 kilometer an hour zone on a blind curve. The other driver was turning right and he hit her at full speed. Instead of braking, this guy just started honking his horn, and for some reason, neither he nor the other driver got a ticket. Well, I told him in the group chat that he was probably at fault, considering he was going about 50% over the speed limit on a blind curve and just 100 meters from a school zone that required you to go 40 kilometers an hour. Even if he had the right of way, insurance would deem him at fault due to his speed and slow reaction time. I then told him to not send the footage to his insurance company. Well, of course, everyone in the chat called me a jerk, and one of them said, "Bro, I live near that neighborhood, and my brother goes like 80 on that street. Everybody does. That lady was an idiot." Well, since the cop didn't give him a ticket, and the group chat supported him, he ended up sending the footage to his insurance company. He was so confident that he started asking for suggestions on what new car to get once he received a fat paycheck. Everyone got hyped up and started browsing AutoTrader. Well, a week later, he got the verdict from his provider, and he was deemed 100% at fault. He also had the cheapest insurance plan, so his insurance company paid nothing to him and only covered the other driver. Even if they had paid him something, he wouldn't be able to afford insurance with his record as a young male. In the group chat, I responded by saying, "Now you know why I drive like a grandma, enjoy taking the bus," while also labeling this as a sarcastic comment. Well, after I said that, everyone in the chat reacted by saying, "Wow," and then a startled face emoji. He replied by saying, "Rules are meant to be broken. I'm not a stickler like you. Everyone gets in a car crash." So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and it honestly sounds like your friends are pretty toxic to begin with. If someone's gonna ride in your car, they have to follow the rules. That means putting a seatbelt on and sitting still and not getting in the way. Like, that is basic human decency, and there's no reason for them to act that way. But also, the condescending remarks they've said about you is just completely inappropriate. Them calling you a grandma and saying that you suck at driving, but at the end of the day, who's the one that got in the accident, and who's the one who actually has a car that currently works? So personally, I don't think you're the jerk at all for responding and being like, "Wow, that sucks," because these people have said way worse to you. Why should they get to make fun of your driving and then suddenly get offended when you make fun of theirs? And it's so funny to me that he's like, everybody gets into a car crash, and it's like, sure, that is a point, but if you follow the rules of the road and you're paying attention and you're not an idiot going over the speed limit, then you lower that chance significantly. Yes, it can happen to anybody, but you're more likely for that to happen when you do stupid stuff like this friend. Like, I can't stand people who have this like superiority complex of like, "Oh, rules are meant to be broken, and I decided to break mine, but that's not why I got in an accident." And it's like, dude, that's exactly why you got in an accident. If you were going the speed limit, then you could have avoided slamming into this lady and destroying your car. And yes, even the insurance company says that this is your fault. So truly, I don't think you're the jerk for firing back at them and giving them a taste of their own medicine. Because honestly, it sounds like your friends are pretty toxic, and this is something they absolutely deserve to hear. Am I the jerk for refusing to take my sister's kids to school after I found out that they've been bullying my son? Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, my sister and her 2 kids recently moved in with us after she went through a rough divorce. For the sake of the story, we'll call my sister Sarah and her 2 kids Jake and Mia. She's been staying with us for about 6 months now, and we've tried to be as accommodating as possible. My wife and I have 1 son. We will call my wife Laura and my son Ethan. And honestly, at first, everything was fine and the kids got along okay. Over the last few months, however, Jake and Mia have been making Ethan's life miserable. They've been teasing him constantly, calling him names, and even going through his things when we're not around. It's been especially bad for Ethan because he's more introverted and quiet. He's come to us multiple times and he's been upset about things they've said or done, and I've tried addressing it with Sarah, but her response has been pretty dismissive, saying, "Oh, it's just normal sibling stuff, they'll grow out of it." The tipping point came last week when Ethan told me that Jake had taken his school project, something that he had spent days working on, and ruined it by drawing all over it. Ethan was in tears. When I confronted Jake, he laughed it off like it was a joke, and Sarah didn't seem to think that it was such a big deal and said that Ethan was being too sensitive. Now, Laura was furious but tried to stay calm. Eventually, I finally had enough, and I told Sarah that if she couldn't keep her kids in check, then I wasn't going to keep doing favors like driving them to school every day. For reference, I've been taking all the kids to school since Sarah moved in because her car broke down and she has not been able to get it fixed. This is also about a 20-minute detour for me, and I was happy to do it at first, but after this, I told her it was too much and she needed to figure it out on her own. Now Sarah is upset, saying I'm punishing her and her kids over something small, and it's not fair for me to leave her stranded. She even went as far as to say that I was being petty and holding a grudge against the kids. She thinks I'm overreacting and should just let it go for the sake of family harmony. My wife is 100% on my side and thinks that Sarah's kids have been out of line for months, but now Sarah's giving me the cold shoulder and telling other family members that I'm being unreasonable. So am I the jerk for refusing to drive them to school anymore? What should I do? Oh man, this really pisses me off because I know exactly what you're going through. This kind of behavior is so obnoxious. I know people who like this who are just completely dismissive of their monster children, who will literally allow them to say and do whatever they want, and those kids never face any consequences. You're always expected to be the bigger person, and everybody else who's offended is just overreacting. So no, you're not the jerk by saying, I'm not going to help you any longer, because this behavior is unacceptable. And the fact that she's now going behind your back and talking to other family members and trying to spread these weird lies about you, like that for me would be the tipping point where I would say, okay, you've got to go. If you want to talk crap about me so badly to other family members, then you can go live with said family members. You are not going to do that to me in my own home for a single second. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. Sarah and her kids need to get a grip, because right now they are taking advantage of your kindness, and that is not something that you should deal with in the slightest. An entitled old jerk yells at a gate agent after he missed his flight as it was being taxied away. But as a result, this gate agent got the last laugh, as they made this jerk wait for hours for another flight, thus missing the next one that was available in just a few hours. Here's what happened. Okay, so the closest airport to me is a smaller regional airport in a different time zone. So if you fail to take this into consideration, you can definitely miss your flight. One time, I missed my flight this way, and I'm waiting in line at the gate to get rebooked. And from the looks of it, the entitled old man in front of me has evidently done the same thing. The agent points to a plane taxiing away from the terminal and tells him, that's your flight, I'm sorry. Before she can explain what his options are, this guy loses his mind. He starts shouting, tell them to bring back that plane right now. You do not understand, I have to be on that flight. He doesn't chill out until she says, look, one more outburst and I'm calling security. She then books him on the next flight out, which is at 10 o'clock p.m., and right now it's 9:30 in the morning. Well, this guy then grabs his stuff and stomps off in a furious rage. Well, I'm up next and I'm thinking to myself, great, I get to tell her the same story. I say to her, hey, I did the same thing as that guy, but it's 100% my fault and I'm not going to get upset. You definitely should not have to put up with that. She takes my information and prints out my new boarding passes, which I assume are for the 10 p.m. flight. Well, instead, she directs me to a shuttle bus, which will take me to the big international airport that is about an hour away, and then hands me boarding passes for a flight to my destination that gets me there just a couple of hours later. Now, she very easily could have done the same thing for Mr. Temper Tantrum that stormed off, but she deliberately and deservedly made him wait for 12 hours instead. And honestly, that guy absolutely had it coming. Yeah, this story's fantastic because that guy absolutely deserved this. For anyone to walk up and treat a gate agent of all people like that, and to scream in their face and be like, you don't understand, I need to be on that flight, as well as barking orders at her as if she's some kind of servant, like that is so inappropriate and so unbelievably rude. No one gets to speak to anybody like that and then expect any semblance of customer service. Like that's definitely not how this is gonna work. So I love the fact that this gate agent knew exactly what they were doing and basically said, oh, okay, you want to be rude? Congratulations, you get to wait all day to go on this flight. Because she very easily could have given him a ticket and said, oh, I'm so sorry, here's another ticket that's going to get you there way sooner. But instead, she decided to be petty, and honestly, in moments like this, being petty is really the best option for anybody involved. So truly, good for the original poster for getting to witness this in action, because this is a fantastic lesson that if you just show a shred of human decency, then sometimes things can truly work out. An entitled Karen demands that I pay her son for mowing my lawn, despite the fact that I never asked him to mow it in the first place. And even though I tried to explain the situation to this lady, this Karen was freaking out and refusing to take no for an answer, demanding that I pay her son. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old male and I recently bought my first house. I'm settling in and I really like the neighborhood, and a few neighbors even came by to say hello, and that included a woman in her 40s and her 13-year-old son. Well, not long afterwards, I was on my couch one afternoon and I saw this lady's son outside mowing my front lawn. Now, I was confused, since I had never asked him to do it and he had never offered. So I went out and politely asked him why he was doing it. He said he did it for lots of neighbors and quickly added that they gave him $5 for it. Now, I found it really weird, so I thanked him for the partial work that he had done before explaining that since I hadn't asked him or wanted him to do it, I wasn't going to be paying him. He then said okay and then quietly left my lawn. Now, I figured that might be the end of it. It's just a kid trying to make some money, and it would have been resolved with no harm done, thus making it the end of the story. But the next day, his mom arrived on my doorstep and angrily asked me why I had not paid her son. Well, when she said this, I basically repeated what I said to her son, but she just wouldn't accept it. She just kept saying that it was a kind gesture and that he does it for all of the other neighbors. It's only $5. It's not a lot of money. You could have given it to him if you wanted to. When she said that, I kept trying to explain that an agreement like that needs to be set up ahead of time. Otherwise, it's just nothing more than a random demand for money, but regardless of what I said, she basically tuned me out and ended up walking away as I was talking. And I was amazed the adult in the situation was handling this worse than the literal child was. And right now I'm wondering how much longer this will go on for. Well, that was last week, and every time I've seen her since, she's stared daggers at me or made a show of crossing the street to avoid me. I'm not instigating any further, and I really have no desire to speak to her, but I'm thinking she might try to send her poor kid back to collect the money or even mow the lawn again. Now, I have vented about this to my family and friends, and while most seem to agree with me, some said I should have been grateful and paid the boy, and just told them from then on not to mow my lawn. Now, I can't tell if I've been the jerk here, or if my reaction to the entire situation was entirely justified. What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I do feel bad for the kid because obviously they're just trying to hustle and make some money, but they did this completely wrong, and in a way that kind of like backs you into a corner, where if you don't pay him, you're going to be seen as a monster, but if you do pay him, you would basically be encouraging this behavior, and you would be on the hook for any future endeavors. And that sounds incredibly annoying. Like seriously, who would just walk up and be like, okay, I'm gonna mow this lawn and then ask for money? Like the better way to do this would be to walk up to the front door and say, hey, I'll mow your lawn for $5, and then you can go about doing it. But like, this is completely backwards. Now with that in mind, it kind of makes me believe that this was intentional and that he absolutely did this on purpose, and this is like part of his scheme, and his mom is in on it in some kind of way. Like just look at the way she reacted when you said, no, I'm not gonna pay for a service I never asked for. She threw a temper tantrum and said, oh, it's only $5. Come on, you could have given it to him. And for me, when anyone's this pushy about money that I don't owe them, that's like a red flag I will never ignore. It really gives the impression that she's trying to work some kind of weird angle. So no, you are not the jerk in this scenario. The way they did this was completely weird, and if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amIthejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for throwing my kids' Happy Meal out into the trash after my mom bought this for them, despite the fact that I made it explicitly clear that I don't want them having that? Because right now, my obese mother is angry at me, saying that I'm trying to bully her just like the doctors who were trying to get her to lose weight. Here's what happened. When I was a child, my mother had no concept of what healthy food was. If it said diet on the box, it was okay. She would serve me cereal for breakfast, with dinners often being processed ready-to-eat junk or McDonald's. And after-school snacks were either cookies or Little Debbie snack cakes. My mom is obese, and I was almost 300 pounds when I graduated high school. It was only after I moved out that I realized how unhealthy I was, and it took me years to lose that childhood weight and establish good eating habits. Now, my wife has always had them and was brought up by a family that didn't trust processed foods. And my family and I now follow a whole food diet for ourselves. My mom had a heart attack and is now almost 400 pounds. This is her third heart attack, and she wasn't able to make rent, so now she is living with me and recovering at my home. She has been to a nutritionist multiple times for her weight and acts like she is too stupid to understand what they are saying, or acts like no one really eats like that, or the doctors and nurses are bullying her because of her weight. She has been ordering junk food and takeout on applications like Instacart and Uber Eats, and she's been feeding my kids the same junk food, even after I've told her to stop. I hear the Ring camera go off, and my youngest child goes to get my mom's latest McDonald's order, and my mom got both of my kids a Happy Meal, and this was the third time that she had done that this week. Well, I took my kids' Happy Meal and I tossed them in the trash, and I poured cleaner on top of them. I told my mom if she wants to eat herself to death, that's okay with me, but do not do that to my children like you almost did to me as a child with this garbage. Well, things got really heated because my mom was crying, saying that she doesn't know any better and that one Happy Meal will not hurt my children. But I told her this was the third one this week, and if she gives my children junk food again, she will find herself in a nursing home. Well, my mom cried and cried, saying I was mean to her and that all these doctors just bully her. She just wants to live her life. But I told her she's not living her best life because she's eating herself into an early grave. My mom called me a bully and told my children that I was a bully and to not act like me in school. Well, I told my mom I'm fed up with her and that I'm going to be looking at nursing homes later that week and that I'm not having her bring this lifestyle into my home around my children. So I really need to know if I'm the jerk in this situation because all of this is still so raw and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all, and in fact, I think you're completely justified. If you don't want your kids eating Happy Meals in your home, then your mom absolutely has to respect that. She can't just go around behind your back and be like, here you go, kids. Just one of these won't hurt you. Meanwhile, it's the third one this week, and this lady is literally 400 pounds. That is unacceptable. That's not okay. And literally halfway through this story, I thought to myself, yeah, I would absolutely make this lady move out if she was talking to me like that. So it's really good to see, in my opinion, that the original poster is moving forward with that. Because if my mom is going to talk to my kids like that and try to turn them against me by calling me a bully, then she has absolutely got to go. Am I the jerk for not telling my new friends that I am technically the landlord that they're renting from? Because right now they are furious with me, claiming that I should just let them live there rent-free and that I had no right to hide this from them. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old female, and I am very lucky in that I have two very hardworking parents that are successful and love me. We are not mega wealthy, but we are very comfortable, as my parents are extremely smart financially. We own multiple houses as part of our real estate portfolio that we rent out for extra income. I recently started college, and as a present for working hard and getting into my dream school, my parents gifted me one of our houses that is near my college. I was going to inherit them all anyways, but I really appreciated their gesture. Where I live, real estate law is really tricky, and we would have to pay significant taxes to officially transfer the house to me, so we decided to have my parents own it legally for now. Now, the house is pretty big, with 4 floors including a fully furnished basement, as well as a roomy attic. And since it is near my school, I decided to look for roommates so I could start earning money early. So far, I have 2 roommates, who we will call Sarah and Brittany for the sake of the story, who also go to my school. We have been living together for a couple of months now, as they moved in around August, and we are all pretty good friends and very compatible roommates. And this is where I might be the jerk. I didn't want to tell them that I own the house, as I thought it might create a weird dynamic between us, and I didn't want them to view me any differently. We split the bills and rent, with me technically paying nothing, since my father legally owns the house, and we have different surnames as I took my mother's last name. They have no idea I own the house, or that my dad just sends the money back to me. Well, Sarah recently found the money that my dad sent me back while I was still at class, and ended up telling Brittany, and they cornered me about it a few days ago. So I told them everything, and they're mad at me for hiding this from them, and think that I'm not only in the wrong for keeping it a secret, but for also making them pay rent in the first place. The house's mortgage has already been paid for, so the rent goes entirely into my pocket. I responded by saying that they shouldn't have gone through my mail in the first place, and that what they did was illegal, which I will admit was kind of a low blow. We weren't friends when they moved in, and the whole point of me wanting roommates was so that I could earn some extra cash, so I don't see why I should let them reside here for free. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because seriously, this is none of their business. Like, these people went through your mail to try and figure this information out. Like, that is absolutely a violation of privacy, while also being incredibly illegal. You can't do that. And also, these people seriously try to be like, wow, you're making us pay rent. You should let us live here for free. I can't believe you. It's like, what are you talking about? You didn't know the original poster before you moved into that place. And you moved in there under the assumption that yes, you would be paying rent. It is insanely entitled to assume anything differently, and there's no good reason for the original poster to receive this kind of scrutiny. So no, of course you're not the jerk. You have every right to expect rent from these people, especially if they're gonna be staying in your house. Am I the jerk for sending most of my extended family an email stating that they are never invited to anything that I have going on in my life ever again? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 36-year-old female, and I made the not so difficult decision to no longer invite my extended family to quite literally anything going on in my life. Stuff like dinners or parties or school events. Pretty much the only exception is my one nephew, who we will call Jamie. He is my sister's oldest son. He moved in with my husband and myself for a while before turning 18, just to get away from his parents and younger brother, who's 17. Now, for some context, when Jamie was born, his parents genuinely seemed to love him. And to the younger version of myself, they appeared to be good parents. But that changed as soon as his younger brother was born. Suddenly, my sister and brother-in-law talked about Jamie as a nightmare, said he was an awful baby, that they hated every moment with him, and his younger brother was an angel and just completely perfect. And this attitude continued. Jamie wasn't a misbehaving kid or feral as they would describe him, but he ran around, got dirty, made noise and messes like most little kids. But this was treated like something awful. His younger brother was quiet and neat, and they would always compare Jamie to his brother just to shame him into being different. If he spilled something, they would scold him. If he got messy, they would reprimand him harshly for it. Eventually, the rest of my extended family started acting the same. Jamie couldn't do anything right. If he sneezed, it was way too loud. If he fell down, he was being reckless or careless. And the praise for his younger brother was insane. Like, Like, yeah, he was a quieter and calmer kid, but Jamie wasn't destroying things or even stealing, yelling, or cursing. Even having too much fun got Jamie negative attention, and I was told to shut up whenever I defended him or would tell people to lay off. I took it upon myself to be there for Jamie as much as I could, but the older the boys got, the harder it got, because Jamie also had his brother trying to get him into trouble or berating him for anything. I hated seeing it, but I knew I needed to be there for Jamie, and avoiding it would do no good. So basically, nobody showed up for Jamie except for me. I was often the only family member, except for when I married and had kids, who made an appearance at school plays and stuff like that. When Jamie moved in with us and got his freedom, I decided it was time to do the same. My family kept asking me about coming over and when my kids' things were going on and what dates they were, but nobody was ever asking about Jamie, or they'd want to know about parties for the kids. Well, I let it all pile up, and then I decided to send an email to the extended family outlining how disgusting their behavior towards Jamie had been, and how that meant they would no longer receive any invitations from me. Well, as a result, I got a lot of negativity back, with people actually saying that I shouldn't take his side when he's just a bratty little jerk who deserved everything he got. Now, for the record, I don't regret defending Jamie, but I really need to know if I handled this badly. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Oh my god, your extended family is so toxic. They seriously looked at Jamie and said, you're the problem. And it really does seem like this kid hasn't done anything wrong. He has not offended anybody, and he's not stolen or broken stuff. He has not bothered a single person in this family, and yet his parents have basically turned him against everybody else in the family. Like, they paint this Jamie kid as this nightmare child, when in reality he's just a teenager. He literally hasn't done anything wrong. They're just overreacting to all the things going on in his life, as if they're hyper-focused on all the wrong things he's doing. And that, in my opinion, is so disgusting and so toxic. It's a really good thing that you stepped up and said, okay, I'm gonna be there for you, Jamie. With you even opening your house to him so he has a place to stay, just to escape his stupid family. And honestly, this does not sound like family in the slightest. They clearly have pushed Jamie aside, and they've completely compartmentalized him as this awful person who can do all these horrible things all the time. So in my opinion, I think you're a godsend for Jamie, because hopefully he can now see what a real family is supposed to act like. Because what he's gone through growing up, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for telling my little sister's best friend that my brother stole her college fund and blew it all on gambling? Because right now, my family is furious with me, saying that I ruined my brother's life all before he could try to fix what he had done. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 30-year-old male, and I found out that my younger brother, who we will call Tom, who's also 28 years old, stole $5,000 from my little sister's best friend, who we will call Emma. Emma's 18 years old, just like my little sister, and Tom and Emma's families have always been very close, with Emma practically growing up with us. My mom asked Tom to help Emma manage her money for college because she trusted him with it as he works in finance. Well, Tom recently confessed to me that he borrowed $5,000 from Emma's college fund and blew it all on gambling. He said he planned to replace it before anyone noticed, but he lost everything. He begged me not to tell anybody, saying he's going through a rough patch and just needs time to make it right. Emma's family doesn't have a lot of money, and she worked super hard to save for school. Knowing this, I felt really sick to my stomach. I didn't want to betray my brother, but Emma's future is on the line. So I told Emma the truth. She was devastated and confronted Tom, who denied everything at first, but eventually broke down and admitted it. But now my family is furious with me for ruining Tom's life and says that I should have given him a chance to try and fix it. So am I the jerk in this situation for telling Emma what Tom did to her? Because right now I'm seriously not sure what to do. No, you are not the jerk in this situation. Your brother stole money from another human being, and that other human being just happens to be somebody that you grew up with. Like, Emma isn't a stranger. This isn't someone you're not going to see again. This is a very serious family friend that you absolutely have a history with. So for your brother to be like, listen, I stole from her, but I'm going to get it back. Let me make it right. Like, no, sir, you should have not done that. That is absolutely not okay. If he really is having a hard time with money, then the window for putting money back in this account and being like, oh, okay, I fixed it, nothing happened, like, that's completely closed. We're past that at this point. And at that point, the only right thing to do is to tell Emma, because seriously, she does not want this guy having anything to do with her money. Tom clearly has a problem with gambling, and he should be the last person to handle any of that money. And it's so ironic because he works in finances. You would think that he would know better. So no, you're not in the wrong here, and anyone who's mad at you is completely out of their mind, because Emma had every right to know about this situation. And if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Would I be the jerk if I walk my daughter down the aisle at her wedding, even though she didn't ask my husband, who is her stepdad, to do that or literally anything at her wedding? Because right now he's saying that if I do this, then I would not be honoring our wedding vows. And right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have 2 children with my late ex, who we will call Colin. My son is 27 and my daughter is now 25. Colin and I broke up while I was pregnant with our daughter, but he remained a part of our lives until passing away just 6 months after our daughter was born. We hadn't worked out as partners, but we got along okay. Just very different people who couldn't make a relationship work and had kids very early in our relationship. Colin's family were in my children's lives from the start and remained a part of their lives long after he was gone. We never got along, but they adored my children, and my children adored them in return. And their favorite thing was the week they spent with his family each summer. When my daughter was 7 and my son was 9, I met my husband. We married after 2.5 years of dating, and we had already lived together for a year. My husband has no children of his own, and we had none together. He was a very loving stepdad to my kids. Now, my kids and him have a nice relationship, but neither of them call him dad, and neither wanted to be adopted by him, which did come up a year into our marriage. He did ask, and I wanted to find out what the kids wanted, and I spoke to them, and they just straight up said no. And this is not something they later asked for or wanted. Well, my daughter is getting married next year, and she asked me if I would walk her down the aisle. Now, I immediately said yes, and was so moved by the fact that she felt I was the best and only person for the job. She even told me how much it meant to her that I never erased her dad when we weren't even together when he passed away. She said I always put them first, and I had been the best mom, and I honestly cried so hard. She also asked her brother to dance with her in honor of their dad. Well, my husband was upset that he wasn't asked to walk her alongside me, and he was hurt that I accepted without suggesting that we both should do it. I then explained that my daughter had her reasons to ask me, but then he mentioned the dance in honor of her dad and how she wasn't even doing that with him. I told him I was sorry he was feeling so hurt, but he told me that he felt like all the little things that she had asked me to do were just as a way to keep the peace instead of her truly wanting him to have a role in her wedding. I'm still not sure what these things were, and I did ask, but he wasn't happy about them. He told me I should take a stand and insist that he be included or I don't walk her down the aisle. I told him I wasn't willing to let my daughter down or myself. I told him it was very special to me and my daughter, and he told me I'm not honoring our vows if I do this. So right now, I really need to know, would I be the jerk if I walk my daughter down the aisle, despite the fact that my husband is demanding that I don't do so? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk, and I think your husband is absolutely crossing some lines here. You mean to tell me that this guy is seriously saying that you walking your daughter down the aisle is somehow you breaking your marriage vows? Like, that is crazy. That is absolutely out of left field, and it's completely inappropriate. Like, where does he have the right to talk to you like that? That for me would make me so offended it's not even funny, because you're not breaking some wedding vow by walking your daughter down the aisle. You're stepping in as the parent that raised her through all of the mess that was her life, whereas this guy is just a stepdad. And yes, it does hurt, but honestly, that's the truth. The kids don't call him dad, and they didn't want to be adopted by him at all. That's not what they wanted, and it's not what they got. And sure, he does play a big role in her life, but it's honestly up to her how she wants to run her wedding. So sure, be upset about it, but that doesn't mean that your wife shouldn't be allowed to have this moment with her daughter. You should be happy for her that she's actually doing this and not act spiteful and weird just because you're not included. Like, that's not solving anything, and it really just puts the original poster in a weird spot. So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk for walking your kid down the aisle, because this is clearly a very special day in both of your lives. And the way your husband is acting right now is very selfish, and you and your daughter do not deserve this in the slightest. An entitled jerk tries to scam my company by working the system and demanding a refund that we definitely could not give him. But after being treated so poorly by this guy, I decided to get some revenge by reporting him for fraud and eventually getting him fired from his job. Here's what happened. So I used to work on the retentions department of an ISP back in the day. While many people called genuinely wanting to cancel their phone service, just as many knew that retentions was more than that. The ISP, let's call them Red Phone, had 2 different departments. I worked on retentions 1, where we did a lot of fixing bills and offering small discounts and slightly cheaper phones to customers who said they wanted to leave. Retentions 2 was for customers who were in the process of porting their numbers, and the worst thing they offered was a 50% discount for a couple of years with a decent phone for free. Now, this happened roughly 10, maybe 12 years ago, when roaming was straight up highway robbery. Now, at this point, let me introduce you to the executive. I got the call all, did my little introductory spiel, and I immediately discovered that this guy was the most entitled piece of garbage I'd ever had the displeasure to speak to. He said he was a very important executive who traveled a lot for work, but the bill he got was ridiculous, and I had to solve it for him or he was going to cancel his service. I then muted him so he heard nothing, but I could still hear what he said, and while I checked his account, I could hear him gloat to his girlfriend that he's getting the bill credited because he knows how to play the system. And sure, he was definitely a jerk, but he wasn't wrong. This guy was a pro at playing red phone. He had the highest phone plan the company offered, which was around 90 euros at the time for one line, but paid 30 euros per month because he had discounts from both departments stacked on top of each other. His plan allowed him to get what at the time was a super expensive phone for basically nothing at retentions too. He had gotten the super shiny customer status and the super shiny customer service line, which usually meant a customer was averaging a 300 euro monthly bill, despite the fact that he was only paying 30 euro. Now, he was also not wrong about this bill being ridiculous. He'd visited several European countries, got a 600 euro bill, called up customer service, and said he had not known that roaming was so expensive, and that no one had warned him when he told us he was traveling overseas. The company had a policy that the first time a customer complained about something, we could refund them, specifically if the complaint was that the customer had not been informed about extra charges. So the representative informed him about roaming cost and refunded him all the roaming charges, leaving him the bill at 30 euros. The second month comes around and he kept using the phone overseas and racked up a 1,500 euro bill. He calls customer service and they tell him they can't refund him again, and he says he wants to cancel his account then, and then he gets transferred to me. He was then demanding that we credited his roaming charges again, because if we can do it once, we can do it again, and also because roaming prices were awful. Now, I told him I could not do that, so he then wanted me to open a claim and escalate it. Now, I refused again because there was no one to escalate to, and he wasn't going to get that credited. Well, he insisted that he wasn't hanging up until I escalated the issue because he wasn't informed, and if I kept the call going for much longer, he was going to charge the company for his time because he was a busy man. Now, at this point, I'd been working there long enough that if they were just nice or even normal to me, I would try my absolute best to help them out. But if you're a jerk, then sorry, you can just get lost. If the customer refuses to hang up, then I can hang up. But this guy though, he had gone way past being a jerk, and I was really pissed off. I couldn't be a jerk back, but he had been messing around and I could make sure that he definitely was going to find out. So I told him, okay, since he was so insistent, I would open a claim to refund him the 1,500 euro bill, and I muted him while I opened the claim. This jerk was again gloating to his girlfriend about how clever he was because he was going to get the bill refunded too. Meanwhile, I was copy-pasting the notes from the previous month's claim where the representative had written that they've informed the customer of roaming charges in all the countries that he would be visiting. Also, when it comes to stacking discounts, that's definitely not a thing. He had to spam the Retention 1's call centers with so many calls until he got a newbie of some kind that was lost enough to apply another discount over his Retention 2's discount that he already had. And he had not read the terms and conditions of the accounts, but I had. Trying to defraud the company was grounds for service termination. I got the claim number, I flagged down my supervisor, and I told her to please send it to headquarters in the daily report so that fraud could examine the account. So I told the guy that the claim had been opened, but also that since it was obvious he was trying to work the company's policy, the claim had been flagged to be reviewed by fraud, and it was likely his account would be terminated. Well, this guy went from entitled to worried in about 2 seconds and asked me to please close the claim. But it's like, sorry dude, can't do that. You wanted a claim open? Well, congratulations, it's now open. At the end of the day, this guy actually ended up getting fired from his job, and I've honestly never felt better about getting revenge on anybody in my life. Yeah, that's some solid revenge because this guy literally was working the system. Like, he already got away with this once, why on earth would he think he could get away with it again? So good for you for getting this taken care of and for putting this guy in his place, because if he was just reasonable even in the slightest, then all of this could have been avoided from the very start. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My job strung me along for 3 years, promising a promotion that I never ended up getting. And now, after I found out that I got fired, I feel completely dejected, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, all names in this story have been changed. In May of 2021, I got a job as a server at a popular local restaurant. It is a promote from within business, and everyone knows the goal is to be promoted to bartender since they make a ridiculous amount of money most nights. Now, I had 6 months of prior serving experience. There's no tip pool, and the starting pay is $2.13 an hour. I was hired during a mass hiring after they reopened post-pandemic, along with a 21-year-old male by the name of Luke, who had no serving experience, a few girls my age, and some industry lifers. Even though I was hired as a server, they started me as a host making about $10 an hour. My shifts were rotated with another recent hire for 20 months, who was a 20-year-old female, and there were promises that I would eventually be added to the serving schedule like all the other recent hires. Now, I didn't protest because I needed the job, and I knew the serving and bartending money would be worth it. Finally, I was added to the serving schedule, and although they were Monday and Tuesday shifts while still hosting, I was happy. But eventually, I began to feel these shifts were unfair. Everyone else worked the busy weekend shifts and were making cash, but I was struggling. Well, I spoke to one of my managers by the name of Donald about getting better shifts in general, but he told me I had to earn the right to serve on weekends and that the other servers were better than me. And by the way, these were the same servers who had been hired with me and all got to train while I was stuck hosting. After months of proving myself, I finally got a decent schedule with weekend shifts. And this is around the same time that I learned that Luke was promoted to lead server, which is one step below bartender. He was making $5 an hour and hanging out at the golf course with our managers outside of work. I mean, why was he promoted while I struggled for 6 months? And to me, it seemed like sexism. Well, one night after a beer with one of my managers, a person by the name of Cameron told me to reach out if I ever felt unfairly treated due to my gender. Well, the next day, I took him up on the offer and I told him that I felt it was sexism that Luke had been given opportunities that I and the other women servers had not been given, and that he had been hanging out with the male managers outside of work. Well, Cameron took huge offense that I was accusing him of sexism and told me I was welcome to quit if I was unhappy with my workplace. And ever since this conversation, he barely speaks to me. Since talking to him was a dead end, I took the same conversation up with my female manager by the name of Beatrice. She said sexism is just part of the industry and I needed to accept it. She also claimed that he wasn't even promoted because of sexism, but because he closed most weekends and had proved himself, and these were shifts that I'd been begging for since I started but were simply given to him. And while I was still frustrated, I decided to accept it and just move on. But over the next year, I made it my goal to prove my value to this company by picking up every closing shift that I could. I was going to be the best server possible, and I was going to work as much as I could. I eventually got to the point where I was working full-time closing shifts while balancing full-time school so I could finally have that bartending position I've been working for. I was also diligent about having regular conversations with each of my managers about how hard I'm working to be promoted to bartender one day and what I keep doing to reach that goal. And eventually, they even promoted me to lead server alongside with Luke. Unfortunately, rumors were swirling that the female employees were feeling uncomfortable by Luke's incessant flirtation with them, getting them drunk at work and then offering to drive them home, taking them out to bars while drunk, and just putting them in uncomfortable situations and much more. As a lead server, they approached me as a liaison between them and management to communicate on their behalf. Now, conversations with management were unpleasant to say the least. I was then accused of trying to steal Luke's bar promotion, vouching for unreliable employees, and lying because I wouldn't give them the names of the women who asked me to speak on their behalf. They told me that at the end of the day, if nothing happened on the restaurant's property, then they can't fire him. I was ultimately given the unfriendly advice to keep unnecessary drama out of the workplace. After all was said and done, Luke continued receiving special treatment, and I was reassigned to Monday and Tuesday along with my hosting shift. Fast forward and another year of serving and balancing school passes, and I just keep my head down. I'm working diligently, and I'm avoiding conversations with management, while also still holding out hope for the bartending promotion. A lot more happened during this year that I won't detail in this post, but I did write a report to the Better Business Bureau regarding some serious ethical issues with management and their staff, including managers sleeping with young employees, excessive drinking on the clock, and being verbally awful towards employees. Well, one day, our owner by the name of Brady drunkenly approached me to apologize for the hard time I've had to work at this restaurant and thank me for my loyalty in sticking it out. Since I am a lead server, he asked me to email him a list of general and specific issues that I had heard other employees express concern about because he wants to ensure his employees' well-being from here on out. Well, fast forward, and after reading my email, Brady confronted me at work a week later, while drunk of course, alongside our general manager by the name of Kingston. They took me upstairs alone and they pressed me for the names of problem managers and the employees I referenced in my email, despite me stating that I wasn't comfortable sharing names. After an hour and a half of this interrogation, I finally broke down and cried. Brady then scoffed and walked off and said maybe the restaurant industry isn't for you. But you know what? Even still, I stayed, still hoping to get that bartender promotion. I had already dedicated so much time and energy to this goal that I wasn't going to give up. And after this, I worked even harder and even longer and just kept my mouth shut. 3 years in total go by, and I graduate college and go on vacation with my mom. And when I come back, I find that 2 new bartenders I don't recognize from our serving staff have both started training. And at this point, I'm just completely devastated. What is so wrong with me that they never want me behind the bar? I know everything there is to know about this restaurant at this point, and I've trained literally every coworker of mine on the floor. I then have a conversation with another one of my managers by the name of Hannah, and I tell her I need to take a mental break for just a couple months, but would be ready to come back this fall to start fresh again. Now she says all right, and I leave in better spirits. Well, you'll never guess what happened next. I open up the scheduling app last month just to pick up some shifts after my hiatus, only to find that I was logged off. They had apparently fired me after over 3 years as their lead server, without any notice or any conversation. And right now, I'm left feeling worthless, disappointed, frustrated, and angry. And right now, I feel so tired that it's not even worth fighting at this point, because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, this place does not sound like a fun place to work. They have basically held this carrot over your head and led you on that being a bartender is where you want to be, and then they've never given it to you and given it to other people. So yeah, I think there might be some sexism or even just favoritism going on in some kind of way, because this treatment seems very biased. Now, on the other hand, I think you do need to realize that you left for a month for vacation, only to come back and then leave again for several months. So on that end, I kind of understand why they would kind of kick you to the curb. I'm not saying that it's right, but I do kind of get it to an extent. You already had a month-long vacation, and then you come back to work, get upset that someone has the position you wanted, and then you take several more months off. If I was a manager, I'd be like, wait a second, what's going on here? And sure, you have been there for 3 years. You've been dedicated to getting your job done and proving yourself to these people, but from my experience, if a manager can fire somebody, they will. And it really sucks, and it's not fair. And it seems like this restaurant has a lot of turnaround because clearly there's new people coming and going all the time, and they obviously don't value the hard work that you put in, so they don't see you as a good asset in the slightest, and that just sucks entirely. So no, it's not right, but I do kind of get it, even though it's awful behavior and it's just so unacceptable. But truly, I think you can find a much better job than this, because these people sound like they suck to work for, and I really think that you deserve so much better. My boyfriend broke up with me suddenly and has never given me the chance to have any closure with our relationship, and now I'm considering flying across the country just so I can have one last conversation with him to try and find the closure that I desperately need. Here's what happened. Okay, so to start things out, he broke up with me the month before because he was struggling with mental health and thought it would be good to move home to his family in Texas, as we lived in the Northeast at the time. We agreed that we would both work on ourselves for a bit, and then we would get back together much stronger. I wanted what was best for him, and despite trying, it was becoming clear that I couldn't help him. So we broke up and then continued to support each other through the sadness of the breakup. We loved each other so much. I was so sure that he would move home, feel better, and we would get back together quickly, that I wouldn't even call him my ex-boyfriend, and I would just call him my first love. Well, a month later, my brother overdosed and was in a coma. The doctors told us he was brain dead, and that he would have to donate his organs in a few days. Despite trying to handle it on my own, I missed my boyfriend and decided to call and beg him to come, but he said that he couldn't, which pretty much destroyed me. And that was the last time that we talked on the phone, and I was shocked. Him refusing to come was the last thing I expected in the world, especially based on our bond and how I thought that we cared about each other, especially considering everything I knew about him over the past 4 years and what I would do for him if he asked me. We went from talking every day to never talking again. After the day my brother passed, he just completely disappeared. He never reached out to me or any of our mutual friends to check in on how I was doing. He didn't reach out to any of my family who he was very close to, and he didn't reach out about the funeral or anything. All of it just hurt so bad. The fact that he cared so little when I cared so much hurt so bad. But I think the shock of it all hurt the most. The fact that he was showing me someone I've never met. It made me worried about him. I couldn't understand how he could treat me that way, which made me worried that he wasn't doing well. I was extremely hurt and angry at first, but 2 months later, the anger disappeared and I forgave him and I missed him. I thought there must be a reason as to why he couldn't comfort me at the time, and it must have been a good one, because I couldn't have been so wrong about someone for so long. I trusted him with my life and I wanted to trust myself. Well, I decided to reach out to reconnect and try to talk about what happened with us. He wouldn't respond to my text messages or calls, so I decided to email him, which was a special thing that we used to do. He responded to my heartfelt letter with complete apathy, which terrified me again. He basically said that he was not willing to talk to me, but he did wish me the best. And this was the complete opposite of anything we ever said, and again, it sent me spinning. Up to this point, the last time I saw him in person was a month before my brother passed, when he visited my family for a week after we decided to take the break. We hugged and kissed with love before he left to catch his airplane home. He has never done anything but love me in person, and everything disappointing has happened over text messaging, which is just so confusing and difficult for me. Like, I can't really believe that any of it was him. The only reason I think he still cares about me though is through his music, which is how we used to communicate when we were first getting together. He has been making playlists, and I have been listening as if they are his words. Many of them convey that he still loves me too, and that he is also confused about everything that has happened, but I have no way of knowing if he knows or listens. And I know this is all crazy, but I don't know what to do because I feel so stuck. I can't believe that the person I used to trust with my life is the only person I'm terrified to reach out to. I want to talk, but I'm too scared to reach out over text messaging after the last two experiences that I had. Nobody understands, but I just need to see him in person. I need to see him to either hug him and heal or just to say goodbye. He just started a graduation program in Austin, and I'm wondering, should I fly down there and stand outside of his school? My hope would be that he saw me and we both run into each other's arms and cry and heal. My fear would be that he would see me and just look at me apathetically and ignoring that we ever existed. So should I fly down there and try to find some kind of closure? What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and say what I think all of us are thinking, but this is crazy talk. Like, seriously, this went from I'm mourning the loss of my relationship to hey, I'm a creepy stalker in like 2 paragraphs. Literally, you went from like, oh man, this really sucks to, oh, I'm gonna fly down to his school and stand outside of it. Like, what are you talking about? That is a horrible idea. You are literally trying to equate his playlist into some kind of like love letter to you. And by the way, why do you need closure? He already responded to your email. He said, hey, I don't want to talk about it, but I wish you the best. That is all the answer that you need. The subtext there is that, hey, he doesn't want to be with you and he doesn't want to talk about this. He wants to move on with his life, and that's that. But seriously, let's reflect on your behavior real quick. You want to fly down there and stand outside of his school under this delusional hope that he's going to run out to you and you're going to heal together? Like, that is not going to happen. That is not going to happen at all. If I had an ex-girlfriend who was standing outside my school and was like, I just want to talk, I want to see you in person, let's figure this out with a hug. Like, you've either watched way too many movies or you really think that that's how this is going to go down. Because what's really going to happen is this guy's going to look at you and be like, what in the world are you doing here? He's not going to run into your arms and be like, oh my God, you're right. I'm so glad you're here. Let's figure it out together, you and me. Like, no, man, that's not going to happen. He's going to be like, please leave. Why are you here? I don't like you. And there's a good chance he's going to have another girlfriend already with him in some kind of way. Like, why would you do this to yourself? So no, do not fly down to Austin and see him. Don't go to his graduate program and stand outside of his school. None of that's a good idea. That's an insane idea, and it's not going to do you any good because this relationship is over. And I'm sorry that you're hurting, but you need to accept that and move on with your life. Am I the jerk for kicking my sister out of my house after she screamed at my wife for trying to remodel the backyard? Here's what happened. Okay, so my sister has lived with me ever since she was a teen mom. She has her own little space for her and her kids, and for the record, this is my house as I own it. My fiance by the name of Amy moved in, and since Amy's my wife, she can remodel the home as she likes. Amy and I have been together for 4 years, and my sister has lived with me for 6. My sister and Amy got into this huge argument over ripping out my grass where her kids play, and doing so to make a garden that will bloom next spring. And Amy had discussed this with me, and I definitely agreed upon it. Now, because of our different schedules, we forgot about my sister and telling her about the garden. Amy took a few days off from work to meet with the contractors for the initial digging up of the yard, and this happened while I was at work. Well, my sister made a scene with the contractors and yelled at Amy. Amy then told my sister that it's time for her to move out and get on with her own life, and that I've been supporting her and her kids for far too long. A neighbor eventually got involved and called the police, saying that Amy wasn't authorized to have the contractors dig up the yard. Amy was asked to leave the property by the police with an overnight bag, and this was supervised by the police because I was not reachable at work. My sister then told me, can you believe that idiot just ripping up the yard like that? Now, at this point, I have to leave work and take my hour commute home just to deal with my sister. I told her it's time to move out, and she should have never been been involved with the garden. It wasn't her place and it's not her home. My sister was complaining that her boys love to play in that patch of grass, and she can't believe that I would make changes to her play area without consulting her. And Amy is really pissed off at my sister and the neighbor. The neighbor tried to apologize, but I had to tell the neighbor there is no more coming over because she will be trespassed, and she had no business calling the police and making the situation worse. The neighbor explained that she didn't know Amy was authorized to make those changes, and I told the neighbor, well, that's too bad. She's now banned from the property, even though she's friends with my sister and their kids play together. I told my sister that her and the boys have to go, and she needs to be out by the new year, or I will take legal action against her. Well, my sister keeps crying and apologizing, but her actions showed Amy what her married life would look like with my sister living with us. And because I'm putting my wife first, my sister absolutely has to go. Honestly, I think you're doing the right thing. First of all, you're definitely not the jerk here because this is completely out of line. Your sister had no business talking to your wife like that. Like, this is not your sister's home. So for her to freak out on your wife like that, you know, the person you're gonna marry and that lady's future sister-in-law, like, that is so rude and toxic. I understand that she wants to live there because it's convenient, but at least for your sanity and Amy's sanity, there's no way your sister can live there and stay with you guys, because you have it 100% correct. This really is a window into your future with this home. Like, she absolutely would be a nightmare to deal with, and I don't blame you for kicking her out. So hopefully all of this goes well, because I think you've given her ample time to figure her life out. And the sooner your sister leaves, I think the happier the both of you will be. Two entitled old Karens demand that I move my table so that they can sit there instead of me, complaining that the other tables were in the sun. And despite the fact that I had my schoolwork all laid out on this table, and that I'd been there for almost an hour, these two Karens were refusing to take no for an answer, resulting in me having to shut them down right then and there. Here's what happened. So this happened earlier today, and I still can't believe it. I had an exam at my university, but before that, I had a class that left me with about 2.5 hours of free time. So I decided to head to a coffee shop nearby to do some last-minute studying. It's a spot where a lot of students go to study with their laptops, and usually you don't really see anyone there over 30 since it's literally right across my university. The weather was nice, so I decided to sit outside. It was around 1:30 p.m., so the place was pretty empty. Plenty of open tables both outside and inside. I ordered my coffee and started studying my notes spread out. And about 45 minutes later, I noticed two older women, probably around 75 to 78 years old, looking at me and glancing around the coffee shop. It was a bit odd, but I didn't think much of it at first. They sat down at a table, but then they got up and started walking towards me, which felt even weirder. I figured maybe they wanted an extra chair for my table, but no. They came up to me and asked if they could sit at my table. Now, I was confused and told them that there were plenty of empty tables around, including one right next to mine. But they said to me, no, we want to sit at this table because the other tables are in the sun and we don't want to sit there. And it really took me a second to process this. Were they really expecting me to move so they could have my table? Especially while I was clearly studying with my notes and everything laid out? I told them again that there were plenty of other tables available and that I didn't understand why they wanted mine, but they kept insisting, can we sit here? And at this point, I wasn't sure if they wanted to sit with me or if they expected me to leave. But either way, I said, no, you can't. And then I went back to my work. Well, when I said that, they looked so offended, as if I had somehow personally insulted them. After that, they went to the waitress and started complaining about the situation. But obviously, there wasn't much the waitress could do. Eventually, they ended up leaving the cafe clearly annoyed. And this is by far, honestly, one of the most entitled experiences from an old person I've ever had in my life. Yeah, that's super weird in my opinion. You don't go up to someone who's clearly established at a table and be like, okay, we want your table. Can we sit here instead of you? The other table's in the sun. We don't want to deal with that. It's like, I'm sorry, but I got here first. That's the way these things go. Like, I took the time to snag this spot, so I absolutely should be entitled to it. And it's not like you're about to get up anytime soon either. You had 2.5 hours to study, and this is, relatively speaking, a quiet place to study on campus. So for these two old people to be like, yeah, you gotta move, I want to sit there. Like, that's super weird and just super entitled. And they should not have treated you like that because you definitely did not deserve it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amIthejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not using my trust fund to save my best friend from becoming homeless? Because right now she's facing eviction, and after I said no, that I won't pay for her rent, she called me stingy and selfish, saying that her siblings are gonna be homeless and it's gonna be my fault. Here's what happened. So in my country, every kid automatically gets a trust fund from the government that they receive when they turn turn 18, and the amount depends on how much the parents contribute to it, with most people getting around $1,000 to $2,000. My best friend received her trust fund back in April and got nearly $2,000 in total. She was really generous and decided to treat our entire friend group to dinner at an expensive restaurant. She also bought us multiple gifts, including giving me a paintbrush set, a book, a ring, some lip balm, and a scented candle. We all thought this was super sweet of her, and we were extremely grateful. A month later, I also received my trust fund on my 18th birthday, and it turns out that my parents had saved up nearly $20,000. I knew they had been saving up money for me, but I didn't realize it was this much. So I decided to learn from my friends' actions, and I took everyone out for brunch and I bought them each jewelry. Not long after that, my friend's family went through financial troubles. My friend used what was remaining of her trust fund to help out her family, but it wasn't enough. They're currently facing eviction if they don't pay the rent, and my friend reached out to me last week asking me for help and was practically begging me for over $100. Now, I feel bad, but I refused. I'm going to university very soon, and I need that money. Buying gifts is one thing, but paying her rent might make her dependent on me, and she might continue asking me for rent money because I agreed one time. Well, when I said no, my friend was really upset with me, calling me selfish. She said that it's not like I need that much money anyways, since my parents would be paying for my university fees and my accommodation fees. Meanwhile, she has to take out student loans and get 2 jobs. She has 2 younger siblings ages 6 and 10, and she called me stingy for allowing them to be homeless, even though I have more than enough to help. I felt guilty, but I told her it's not my responsibility to take care of her family. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. Your friend is trying to use her younger siblings against you to try and be like, wow, you're gonna let them go homeless? And it's like, no, I'm not allowing anything. You're the one that can't pay for it. You are not to blame, all because they need money for rent. And honestly, if they really are like on the verge of homelessness, I would just give them the $100 and be like, okay, here you go, but I can't help you from here on out. Like, obviously, if you have the money, you should totally help out. But I totally understand your reasoning of being like, sorry, I can't help you. And also, the way that she bit your hand and basically treated you like garbage, all because you said no, you're not gonna help her out, like that, in my opinion, really stands out as like a manipulation tactic, especially when she's trying to be like, oh, think of the children. But it's like, seriously, why would you throw that at my doorstep and then try to blame me if you can't pay your rent? Like, why would you let it get to that point and then try to pretend like this is my fault all because you didn't plan properly, and then call the person that would help you out stingy when they're like, no, I can't help you out with this? Like, that's not only incredibly backwards, but it also makes me think that maybe they're not being completely honest. I don't know, maybe they are being honest, but it definitely seems like they're trying to trick you into getting some money. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for keeping that money in your trust fund, because that's meant for college, and in my opinion, that's exactly where it should go towards. My wife is constantly complaining about work and life, and is always being short with me and very rude. And now I'm questioning if she might be acting entitled, because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been thinking about this topic for a long time now, but as always, it's hard to find an answer without some other opinions. So if anyone here wants to weigh in to help me out, please feel more than welcome to do so. Now on to the actual case. I've been married to my current wife for almost 3 years, and overall it's great. We have our ups and downs just like everybody else, but we've always worked our problems out. However, there are some things my wife does that hurt me deeply, and she knows it but still does it. Firstly, she's always offended when I try to have some social life with a circle of friends from work. According to her, we never do things together, and it seems that I prefer to go out with friends rather than with her. Now, I would agree with her if it wasn't the fact that she refuses to go out whenever I ask her. She's always exhausted from work because she hates her current job, and it puts her on a frantic routine. That means I would never go out if I couldn't go with my friends. I understand how tired she constantly is and how lonely she may feel, but I wonder if there's any entitlement to complain about going out if she never feels like doing that. Secondly, she's always pissed at me for the pettiest of reasons. For example, last night we went to a comedy show that she really wanted to go to and got pissed off because when the show ended, I asked her out to have dinner and why not just have some drinks as well, but I didn't know already where to go. After not even 5 minutes, she was already extremely annoyed and saying, let's just go home. Eventually, I found a place for us to go out, but from the moment that she felt annoyed on, she was always on the phone and almost never even looked at me in the eyes. Thirdly, she complains a lot. Sometimes she even belittles me when she has the chance. For example, her period started this last night, and today she told me, if you were feeling the pain that I'm under right now, you wouldn't even stand up. And I get that she feels a lot of pain during those times, and it makes her feel like crap, but it offends me because she's the one that constantly complains about pain and tiredness. I never complain about those things, especially because I don't feel I have a space at home to do so, and in the end, I just suck up all all the pain that I feel. I never tell her when I have migraines, even though I have chronic migraines all the time, and I know how painful those can strike. Adding to the previous point, she also constantly complains to me about her co-working friends as if they're living their lives wrong. There's this woman that broke up her relationship recently, and all she wants to do is go out and drink. And my wife always comments to me how she's not well for doing this, and that she should seek therapy. At those moments, I'm always thinking to myself, let that woman live her life. That is her way of dealing with everything that she's going through. And when I don't agree with my wife, I'm the inconsiderate one that doesn't create a safe space for her. Fourth, and I promise this is the final point, she wants to receive lots of love without giving me anything. If I get a mere pat on the head or a scratch in my beard, that's a day that she gave me a lot. On the other hand, I have to constantly spoil her, whether I feed her, cuddle with her until she's hot and dismisses me, or give her massages. Literally, she asks me to massage her calves every single day at least twice. Now, I hope I was able to describe everything as impartial as possible, because I'm really struggling to find out if that behavior is entitlement or not. But you know what? It strikes a doubt in me when I feel she should say I'm sorry and just doesn't. That's something I almost never hear, and thinking about it sometimes makes me feel very hurt. So I'm honestly not sure if she's being entitled or not, because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Okay, I gotta be completely honest, it doesn't sound like your wife is being entitled, but instead, it kinda sounds like she's depressed. I'm not a doctor and I'm not trying to diagnose her, but it sounds like she is not in a good place, and it kinda makes sense why she would be like really short with you and tired all the time, and just overall really frustrated with life. You've described a lot of things that I've personally experienced in my own life, where I hate my job, I'm in pain, and I just don't like what's going on in life. And this feels super similar. And on that note, the original poster actually did clarify that yes, she is depressed. She has been apparently diagnosed by her therapist, so it sounds like that's at least a good step in the right direction, because what you described does not sound good for either of you, and I really hope this works out sooner than later. An entitled customer demands to get service outside of our work hours by practically begging me in the parking lot to help him before I leave. And even though I told him that we are quite literally closed as I'm locking up the store, this guy refused to take no for an answer. Here's what happened. So I don't know if my job counts as retail, as its main service is shipping packages for customers, but we do sell stuff as well, so I think it qualifies. I had just finished shutting down the computers and running end of day on the point of sale, and was in the bathroom changing out of uniform when I heard someone try to open the locked door, but I don't think much of it and I just continued to change. The phone started ringing, but since it was after hours, I ignored it. After it went to voicemail, they called again, but still, since we're closed, I ignored it. Once I finished changing, I took my stuff up front and started to pull the gate out and sliding it into place. Well, the customer sees this and knocks on the window. I look at him and I shake my head and he goes back to his car. I finish locking up and leave the store, ensuring the door is locked one last time before leaving. Well, that's when the customer walks up to me. They then say, it says online that you're open until later. So I have to inform them that during the week we're open until that time, but on Saturdays we close early. Well, after I say that, he tries to argue again by saying, oh, it says otherwise online. But I just simply tell him that whatever website he got that from is completely wrong. He then looks at me and says, so you won't help me? And I just respond by saying nope, and then I walk off. But like seriously, the lights are off, the gate is shut, the door is locked, and the sole employee is leaving the building. How many more signs do you need to understand that we are closed? Also, don't come up and expect service from an employee who's clocked out, especially as I've locked up and I'm walking out at the end of the day. Man, when I work customer service, I could not stand that. Here you are locking up for the day and someone literally walks up right as you close and they're like, wait a second, you're supposed to be open. And the truth of the matter is that they know that the store's not open longer. They're the ones that messed up and didn't get there sooner, and now they have to face the consequences of not being there on time, while also simultaneously trying to make this your problem. And it's always the same attitude of entitlement, where they try to pretend like, oh man, this is such an injustice against me. Are you really not gonna help me out? Like, that's insanely entitled and so obnoxious. So good for you for standing your ground, because this guy was absolutely out of line. An entitled Karen and her kids make my life a living nightmare as their server, as she acted incredibly rude, was condescending, and refused to even give me a tip after making my life a living nightmare. Here's what happened. So we had a family of 5 come in 30 minutes before closing, and we didn't really care, as we still had a good amount of tables dining in still. I go to greet them and I'm mid-conversation asking how they are when the mom yells out that she wants all waters. I ask them if they have any questions over the menu, and the mom says that she's struggling between 2 of our plates. I let her know which one of those is a usual customer favorite, and then suddenly she replied with a super rude tone by saying, yeah, I know, I've ate here before. And I just thought to myself, well, okay then. Eventually they get the meals, and she tells me that everything looks like it was just just slapped on together and there's no love in the food. So I just let her know that we can remake what she doesn't like because honestly, it's just not worth the back and forth. I bring her a new meal and she leaves it alone but keeps complaining to me about how it wasn't okay. I just apologize because at this point, I just want them to eat and go home. They all ordered milkshakes, and when I brought them out, she joked by saying the milkshakes were free because I took more than 5 minutes to make 5 milkshakes. And again, I'm just thinking to myself, yeah, whatever. They then proceeded to pay, and they immediately put no tip on the tip options, to which at that point, I was just getting fed up. Meanwhile, they pay, and her kid is running around the restaurant with her milkshake, and all of a sudden, we see her kid drop the milkshake all over the floor. I walk by, and guess what? They just laugh. Not even say sorry or anything like that. They just laughed at the mess they made, and then they left. And honestly, I hope they never come back because they were an absolute nightmare. Yeah, I can't stand customers like this because they really just don't care. They're not going to tip you, nothing ever is going to be good enough for them, and any mistake that anybody makes is going to be your fault even if you didn't do it. And the first meal that she got is a perfect example of that. Oh, it was slapped together, there was no love in this food. And it's like, yeah, there's no love in the food because you came in 30 minutes before closing, and you've been short with me and rude and given me an attitude since like the second you walked in. So yes, I totally understand where the original poster's coming from because this kind of customer is honestly so annoying to deal with. My mom is constantly criticizing my behavior while refusing to ever listen to anything I ever have to say about her. And now after enduring this my entire life, I'm honestly at my breaking point and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, my mother and I have been through a lot. We've had multiple phases of our relationship being rocky, and this year it's only been getting worse and worse. The beginning of the summer, I gave her an ultimatum. If we are not able to work through all of this on our own, we need a therapist, and the boundary that she's not allowed to say things that invalidate my experience, such as I never did that or that didn't happen. Yesterday, my mom does one of those things that she does where she says, I'm going to tell you something that you probably won't like to hear. And this time, it's a familiar one. She said to me, I feel like you don't care about contributing to the household because you won't give me your school grant money that's left over after your tuition is paid. And when she said this, I just shut up because we've had this conversation 5 times. It's not worth me telling her the same things I always tell her just for a fight to break out. So I leave it and I walk away. Then less than an hour later, she's like, I have something else I want to say. And at that point, I just tell her no. I tell her I don't want to talk. I don't want to repeat the same conversations that we've had. But she always pushes me and I just blow up a little. She expresses that she thinks that she's had an epiphany as to why she's feeling the way she does. And I just say, okay, I'm sorry that I blew up. Let me just calm down for a minute. We go on to have a fairly productive conversation until I apparently trigger her. Now, I use the word trigger loosely, and it's not because I don't think triggers are real or any of that stuff, but rather because this particular trigger is any description of her behavior as being negative. In fact, there are several words that are banned because of this trigger, and we're talking words like yell, shout, scream, snap, snarl, gripe, complain, criticize, raise your voice, nasty, mean, loud, tense, angry. I mean, you name it, it's pretty much banned. We were having a productive conversation about appreciation and the ability to show it. She was talking about how she wishes I would do work in front of her or talk to her about how she looks tired, etc. And I was expressing the fact that I taught myself to never do these things because some of the times it's the wrong thing to do and then she screams at me. And obviously I didn't say that because I was dancing around her supposed trigger words, but I think you catch my drift. I believe my exact sentence was that you can have a negative reaction, snap or yell at me, or just be upset. Her reaction to this trigger is always resorting to dismissing what I'm telling her and telling me that it didn't happen. She then said to me, this is really hard for me to hear from you right now because I haven't yelled at you for years. Now, we had a fight at the beginning of the summer that led to me giving her that ultimatum about finding a therapist, in which I finally managed to meet all of her requirements of me regulating my behavior and walked away appropriately, even though she was screaming like crazy at me from the kitchen as I was going down the stairs. So I just walked away, which is something I told her I would do every time she invalidates my experience. And in fact, we didn't talk for the rest of that day. Today, people are sleeping in, and I see on my phone that she had to go out at 2 o'clock in the morning to help a family friend. So I take care of the dogs. Now, while I'm finishing up my breakfast in the kitchen, suddenly everyone in the household is present. My mother says thank you for feeding the dogs, and I want to be nasty to her. I'm frustrated about the day before, and I'm angry at her. And I'm resentful that she can go about her way to help this random kid, but she doesn't care enough about our relationship to manage her own triggers. So I don't say anything. I ignore her and I take my food and then I just leave. I don't trust myself enough in that moment to say anything nice, so I don't say anything. Now, not immediately, but within the next 5 minutes, she comes down down to my room and asks me if I'm not speaking to her. And I say, no, I'm not. She then says, well, why not? And I respond by saying that I'm feeling angry right now. Well, apparently this is unacceptable to her. She's then telling me, well, why could you possibly be angry? It went so well. Everyone did great. Meanwhile, she's standing in my doorway, trapping me in my room and trapping me in this conversation, demanding an explanation for why I feel the way I'm feeling and why I chose not to engage with her. I did my best to stay as calm as I could and communicate clearly about what I was feeling and why, but nothing I said was acceptable to her. It wasn't okay that I felt angry because of her actions. It wasn't okay that I felt frustrated that she's unable to even try to manage her own triggers. It wasn't okay that I'm upset that I'm always the one who has to remove myself from the situation. And she's standing there glaring at me, asking me to calm down. I have no way to walk away. She has trapped me in my room in this conversation and is repeatedly telling me that nothing happened. And I have to scream at her that she needs to leave in order to get her out of my doorway and get out of this conversation. She's allowed to tell me anytime that I'm too loud, or I sound angry, or that I'm shouting, or I'm screaming, or anything. And she's even allowed to tell me that I'm invalidating her feelings anytime she wants to, or that I need to calm down or walk away. But she never walks away. She never manages her triggers, or even treats me with the baseline respect of assuming that I'm not lying to make her look bad. I'm just so sick of this. She thinks she's entitled to my emotional support of her at any point in time, without regards of what I'm thinking or feeling, and she's entitled to say whatever she wants about my behavior. But if I criticize her, I'm the bad guy and nothing happened. She never apologizes for her behavior, she never makes amends, and she never changes her behavior. She thinks she's entitled to my constant improvement without putting any effort into our relationship. I wish to God that I didn't have to live here. My life is the best it's been in a long time, and she seems set on making sure that the beginning of my semester is a nightmare. I am so close to being able to take an actual career and actually break free of this garbage. I'm about to get a goal I've been working for so long to reach. She doesn't see that she's burning these bridges between us by refusing to even try and improve our relationship. Because right now I'm extremely frustrated, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna say this bluntly, but I really think that your mom's a narcissist. Like, she is absolutely hitting all the marks, in my head at least, of someone who is clearly trying to manipulate you and treat you like garbage. Like, my God, if I was in your shoes, I would be moving out yesterday. Like, there's no way I would want to live with that. Clearly, you're a way better person than me because you're at least trying to make this relationship work, but man, this sounds like a rough one. So seriously, I really hope you're able to get out of there sooner than later because your mom sounds like an absolute jerk. My toxic entitled classmate tries to pass off my hard work as his own during our group project, all while I'm recovering in the emergency room. So I decided to get some revenge by not only ensuring that my professor was aware of everything going on, but also making sure that he couldn't take credit for anything that I worked on. Here's what happened. So this happened a few semesters ago where I was taking a course in urban design. Everyone was grouped in threes, but one of my group members wanted to join another group with their friend. So I ended up with one other person. I'm not sure why the professor thought this was okay, but I wasn't too worried because I was fairly confident in my ability to do the work. The course incorporated previous studio courses to tie together in a massive topic of urban planning, which included architectural design, environmental sustainability, urban infrastructure, and historic preservation. I tried to brainstorm with my partner on which direction we should go. My idea was focused on residents, as housing would address a huge demand here in New York City. However, my partner seemed content on making the project about industrial buildings, so I just focused there. We brainstormed on different ideas, but got the impression that he just wanted me to take the lead, as he mostly agreed while not really giving much input. Well, weeks went by, and I constantly updated my partner on my progress via WhatsApp, while rarely getting any kind of feedback or updates from him. It annoyed me a bit, but I was still confident in my work, which was enough to get us through the next checkpoint during our next presentation. Well, at some point during the semester, I got a really terrible kidney stone. It wasn't from junk food or a poor diet. In fact, it was from eating too much black beans and chickpeas. Now, as a side note, I asked ChatGPT to give me a list of foods, which I used to come up with a meal plan that meets my macro needs. Now, I did feel better with my new diet, but it eventually led to me having my worst kidney stone of my life that ended up putting me in the emergency room. I was on all kinds of pain medications, and I had to stay there for several nights, but it didn't end there. The stone was so big that it got stuck, and I ended up needing surgery to put in a stent. I had to wait several more weeks and endure a lot of pain, and have to have another surgery just to remove the stent, all before I was finally recovering. Now, throughout this whole time, I managed to put in some some work into my project. But you know what? I was surprised to learn that my partner did absolutely nothing and waited for me to continue my work. Like, what is going on? To make it even worse, I learned that he tried to present my work as his own. I mean, how can people be like that? I emailed my professor about my situation. I explained how I've done all the work so far and sent him screenshots of the chat, as well as my project file, which includes all of the history logs. The professor reminded me that during the final submission, everyone had to put their initials on the slides of the work that they worked on. And I thought to myself, okay, you got it. And it's right then that I started to plan. Now, luckily, I was recovered and ready to present my work, but I left out the initials as it wasn't required for the presentation and only for the final submission. And I did this because I really felt the need to see what he would do. I even tried to cut him some slack and gave him some talking points on the parts that I'd allow him to claim as his own, even though it was fully my work. But you know what? He didn't. He kept cutting me off during the presentation to talk about my project as if he had anything to do with it. He mostly repeated the same information that I mentioned while not bringing anything of value to point out. The final presentation had several judges who were comprised of local professionals in high-level positions within the industry. The conversation was always directed at me, so I had a good feeling that everyone understood that I did most of the work as I knew all the intimate knowledge of the parts. Then came the last day to submit our work. The final slides included my initials on every single page. Apparently, my partner missed that part about the initials and also submitted an older version of my work. A few weeks go by and I hit him up asking what he got, and I was surprised to learn that he actually passed with a C+. But he was even more surprised to hear that I received an A- and promptly said he will have a talk with the professor on why he received such a low grade. So honestly, why are these people like this? But regardless, at the end of the day, I did do everything as instructed, and as a result, I ended up with one heck of a semester. Man, this story really makes me mad because this absolutely is so unfair. Here you are in the hospital, and you find out that your project partner is trying to pass off your work as your own. Like, that's enough to make me go crazy, and that really would tick me off beyond end. So truly, good for you for getting back at this guy, because for him to try and take your work like that is truly incredibly toxic. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My job is quite literally the most exhausting environment I've ever worked at, and I seriously hope I never work in a place like this ever again. Here's what happened. So I work at a gas station/grocery store, and it is actually my first time working in this type of environment, and it most likely will be my last. I have become completely mentally drained by how dumb people truly are. I mean, I knew people were dumb, but I had no idea just how dumb. It's like there is a stupid contest, and every 30 minutes a new contestant shows up to try and one-up the other one. In fact, just today alone, I had 2 transactions that have blown my mind, and I'm not even halfway through my shift. Contestant number 1 is this guy that looks to be about 30 years old, and he looks pretty normal. He has just a few things to ring up, and we do so as normal. When it's time to pay, he swipes his card and just blankly stares at the pin pad. He looks at me and I look at him, and there's a good bit of awkward silence between the two of us. He then finally says to me with the most blank expression, "It's asking me if I want cash back, but I don't want cash back." So I say to him, please push the button that says no, as there is literally only 2 button options on the screen. He can either press yes or no. He keeps staring at me in complete radio silence. I then just reach over the counter and push the button for him, as I simply don't have time for this. There are people waiting after all. But yet again, he stares in silence, saying, "No, it's asking for my PIN number." And at this point, I'm in disbelief. So I tell him, okay, well, enter your PIN number. And thankfully, he does so without hesitation. We then finish the transaction, and thankfully he leaves. And it makes me think, this simply can't be your first time using a debit card, or even seeing a cashback prompt, or even entering your PIN number, right? Well, clearly I must have been wrong. Contestant number 2 walks in the front door, sees me checking someone out, and blurts out, "Are you guys open right now?" And by the way, real quick, the store I work at is famously open 24 hours a day. At that moment, I try as hard as I can not to say, "No, we're closed, I'm here for fun." But I reply with a simple yes, because he is staring at me like he wants a genuine reply to what just feels like an extremely dumb question without the context of where he is and what he sees happening around him. And right then and there, I just know that he's going to get up to the counter and be the most annoying person of all time. And yep, he starts asking me questions that I can't answer with a simple yes or no, like forcing me to talk to him in a way. We get to the checkout portion with me trying to minimize conversation as much as I possibly can, and I see him pull out his driver's license and start trying to swipe it like a credit card. And you know know what? I let him do it a few more times before I finally say, "That's your driver's license." Well, he doesn't say a word. He does a full 180 turn and completely walks out of the store, leaving everything that he grabbed on the counter and doesn't come back. Now, it's not these two interactions alone. It's these types of interactions repeatedly and more frequently than you would believe that just becomes so exhausting. Like someone looking at me and blurting out, "How much does this cost?" from the other side of the store. And it's like, I don't know, you jelly-filled donut. There's probably 1,000 different items on the shelves, and each one is typically labeled. Plus, I can't even see what you're referring to. But overall, I am simply exhausted by this job, and I seriously hope I don't have to work in a place like this ever again. Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from, because seriously, some customers are just like blatantly stupid. They don't know how to do anything, they don't know what they want, and if you don't give in to their demands, they just completely take it out on you. Thankfully, the people you dealt with were stupid but harmless, but trust me, when they're stupid and harmful, it quite literally will ruin your week. So hopefully you're able to find a better job than this place, because what you described sounds incredibly exhausting. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for cutting off my entire family after my brother and girlfriend accused me of something that I definitely didn't do that resulted in me being exiled from the family? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 24-year-old male, and I feel like my life has been ripped apart by people who were supposed to love me the most. This all started about 6 years ago, and I'm still struggling to come to terms with it. I've been dating a woman that we will call Emily ever since high school. Our families were that close, and our parents were childhood friends, and we grew up together, and I thought that I would end up marrying her. We had spent nearly our entire lives side by side, going to the same schools, hanging out with the same friends, even going on family vacations together. She was my first love, and I truly believed that we were forever. Then there's my older brother, who we will call Alex. He's always been the golden child. Smart, charismatic, successful. He was my parents' favorite, but I never thought that would matter until everything fell apart. 6 years ago, Emily accused me of mistreating her in the worst possible way, if you know what I mean. And when she did this, I was completely blindsided. We had been together for years. Why would she say something like that? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then, to make matters worse, Alex stepped in, backing her up. He told our parents that he had witnessed me behaving inappropriately towards her at a party, and he claimed that he had been protecting her, and my parents just ate it up. No one believed me. I was horrified, confused, and heartbroken, but my parents didn't even ask for my side of the story. They believed Alex and Emily without any question. I was kicked out of the house within days, and the entire community turned its back on me. Emily's father, who had been like a second father to me, also cut all ties with me. I lost everything. My girlfriend, my family, my reputation. My parents told me they didn't want to see me again until I got help for something I hadn't even done. I was 18 at the time and had nowhere to go. I ended up crashing at a friend's place for a while, but emotionally, I was a wreck. I spiraled into depression and alcoholism, using anything I could to numb the pain of being abandoned and falsely accused by the people I trusted the most. For years, I struggled to move on. I changed cities, started therapy, and slowly started rebuilding my life. But the betrayal still haunted me. Dating was nearly impossible because I couldn't shake the feeling that people would turn on me, just like Emily and Alex did. My family never reached out, and I never tried to contact them either. I couldn't forgive them for kicking me out based on nothing but lies. Then, about 6 months ago, everything changed. One of Emily's old friends, who we will call Lisa, who had stopped talking to her after the fallout, reached out to me. She told me that she couldn't live with the guilt anymore and that she had something to confess. She revealed that Emily and Alex had been in love with each other for years. They had started seeing each other behind my back while we were still together, and when Emily wanted to leave me for Alex, they both came up with a false accusation as a way to force me out of the picture. Alex knew that if he backed me up, my parents would believe them without a second thought, and it worked. Emily and Alex got together immediately after I was kicked out. Now they're married, and as far as I know, they've built the perfect life, while I was left to pick up the pieces of my own. But here's where it gets even more twisted. After Lisa told me the truth, she went to my parents. She couldn't stand knowing the truth anymore, and she wanted to know that they had thrown their son away for a lie. Well, my parents were shocked. Lisa explained how Alex had manipulated Emily, how they had both set me up to be the scapegoat, and my parents reached out to me soon after, begging to meet up and talk to me. They were devastating and crying on the phone, telling me how sorry they were for not believing me. They admitted that they had been blinded by their trust in Alex and their love for Emily. Now, at first, I thought I'd feel some kind of satisfaction from finally being vindicated, but all I felt was anger. It took them 6 years to figure out the truth, and even now they wanted to fix things like nothing had happened. But the worst part about it is that they have forgiven Alex and Emily. My parents say that family is family, and that what's done is done. They still love Alex, and they they've even welcomed Emily back into their lives. They want us all to reconcile and to put this behind us and act as if the last 6 years didn't destroy me. I haven't responded to their latest attempts to reach out, and I don't know if I can ever forgive them for what they did. They threw me out based on a lie, abandoned me when I needed them the most, and now they want me to just get over it because Alex and Emily are supposedly family. So am I the jerk for cutting off my family, even after they found out the truth about what really happened? Because right now I am so angry that I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my god, I am so sorry you went through this. Like seriously, this is insane in my opinion. Not only did you have an awful girlfriend who was cheating on you, but also she accused you of something horrifying. Like there's no excuse for that, and in my opinion there is no forgiving that. Like I would never trust my family ever again if someone did that to me and they believed them. But even on top of that, if they didn't believe me or even like begin to understand my side of things and just automatically said, no, Emily said you did this and Alex is backing her up. You're out of the family. Don't come back until you get help. Like I would never trust those people ever again. It's also equally insulting that your family is welcoming back Alex and Emily and they're just like, listen, family is family. What's done is done. We need to get over it. And it's like, dude, I've spent 6 years on my own figuring out my life because you turned your back on me. And suddenly the onus of like forgiveness is on my shoulders? Like, no, I do not think so. Because if I was in your shoes, I would not feel like these people have earned my forgiveness at all. And honestly, I don't think I could forgive them if someone did that to me, like legitimately. I would never trust them again and they would be completely out of my life. So to that end, I don't think you're the jerk at all for cutting them out of your life because they literally ruined yours. And I just don't think that's something that I could ever forgive, especially overnight. My in-laws spent hundreds of thousands of dollars just to try and live near us so that they could see their grandkid. But as a result, they completely ruined their lives, spending more money than they ever thought possible, all in some kind of effort to build a house closer to us. Here's what happened. Back in 2016, my wife and I decided to buy vacant land about 3 hours from where we live. The jobs were better there for both of us, and we were sick and tired of our hometown. We were going to save up for a few more years and build our forever home. We are only children with the only grandchild, and the grandparents were very active in our lives and the child's life. We offered them to go in with us on land and they could build a house too. My parents agreed, but the in-laws said no, because they just can't think that far ahead into the future. So we bought 5 acres with my parents. Fast forward to 2020, and we started building, and we've moved into a rental nearby. And when we did that, my in-laws freaked out. My mother-in-law starts crying that we can't take away their grandchild. They say it's unfair to move somewhere they can't afford to move to, but we remind them that it's only a 3-hour drive away, and that we gave them the chance to go in with us to make it affordable. And because they didn't go in with us, we didn't buy land zoned for 3 families. Well, a few weeks after we moved, the in-laws call us. They say that they have a plan. They're going to sell their place, which is completely paid off, and buy a small plot of land an hour away from us in the mountains. And then they're going to put a manufactured home on it. Now, this was going to be affordable because my father-in-law is a retired civil engineer and insisted that he could be his own general contractor. Well, now we had just built a house. We know what a pain in the rear end it is and how unexpectedly expensive it is. Both of the in-laws were retired, and we had recently found out that they had almost no savings. And this is all despite making low 6 figures in a low cost of living area for the last 25 years. And in fact, they were living off of Social Security. So we told them that they should keep their house that is paid off and just make the drive to see us, because this was going to be a lot more expensive than they were planning. My father-in-law showed me his budget, and it looked like it was based on building costs from the 90s. For example, our well and pump cost $25,000, but his budget is only for $5,000. When I pointed out his estimates were way too low, he got mad at me and said I overpaid. Now, my father-in-law is extremely old-fashioned and from a rural Missouri. He still goes to the store or mechanic and tries to barter for services. Well, true to form, my father-in-law found someone to buy their house for 75% of market value cash plus services. The guy was a contractor that put up fences around dairies. And honestly, I have no idea how my father-in-law thought this guy would help, but my father-in-law insisted the man was very handy. So that left them with $300,000 for this project, and trust me, this is California, so that is not a lot. They bought the mobile home for $150,000, and that included a $20,000 discount because my father-in-law insisted that he could set the home on the foundation and finish it, meaning that he would install carpets and doors and other things the company usually does, all for much less than that. But by my math, they actually had just barely made enough for electric, trenching, septic, water, foundation, finishing, grading, and permits, and the fees. My father-in-law got bids for everything, which all looked reasonable to me, me, but he insisted that they were way too high, so he was going to wait for the market to come down. He did take the bid for the foundation though, and ended up getting it poured. In the meantime, he bought a fifth wheel to live on the property, and my mother-in-law moved in with a neighbor and lived in their fifth wheel. My father-in-law then went on what I can only best describe as a spending spree. Anything he thought was a good deal that he could turn around and sell for more, he ended up buying. I showed up at his fifth wheel, and there was just tons of garbage all over the place. Like, here's an incomplete list of some of the things he bought. He got a used Cadillac SUV even though he already had 2 cars. He also got hay storage that goes on the back of his horse trailer. He bought 3 stoves that were open box from Lowe's, some slightly damaged cabinets from Lowe's, 300 feet of steel piping that might be used for fencing, 6 gas-powered generators, a used saddle, and tons of parts for his truck. The generators were because he refused to pay for any hookup fees because they would report him to the county and make him pay a permit, as well as school fees he was trying to avoid. So his idea was that he would constantly run generators for power. When we pointed out that they were loud, he had neighbors and couldn't run them overnight for things like his fridge, he said to me, "I'll just push the fridge outside every night. It is pretty cold here." Well, after the mobile home arrived, he realized he needed to clear trees. He didn't want to pay a licensed contractor, so he paid someone who he met at a hardware store to do it. Well, they dropped a massive tree on the foundation, which completely shattered it. And for reasons I still do not understand, he put the mobile home on blocks over the foundation before fixing it. He was now afraid to remove any more trees, so now there is just a giant tree 3 feet in front of their front door, and the door cannot open all the way. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law also went on a shopping bender and bought all new furniture while doing nothing to help out with the actual project. All she did was complain about what my father-in-law was doing and how long it was taking. Now, fast forward 2 years later, and my mother-in-law has had to move in with her sister and wants a divorce. My mother-in-law asked me for help for finishing this project so she can sell it and get her share. I meet with my father-in-law and I tell him that I'm gonna get some contractors up here just so they can finish the job. And I was then informed that they still had $90,000 in the building fund. So I called all my contractors and I got bids, and we could just barely get everything paid for except for permits and fees for that amount because my friends were definitely cutting me a deal. I mean, they built my house and I gave them several referrals. So I asked to see the money before my friends start the project. And guess what I see? They only have $5,000 left. $5,000 from $150,000. I asked them where the money went, and my father-in-law said he spent it on the construction project. He said that he bought the special sand that you need for electrical trenching, and then he showed me the special sand. But it was all just run-of-the-mill. Someone fleeced him for it, and he had paid $6,000 for a couple cubic yards of it. The steel pipe he said was for the horse farm, and he said he met a woman at the grocery store who wanted to board up her horses somewhere and agreed to do it with him. But his zoning does not allow horses. So I just asked my mother-in-law for the bank statements on the building account for the last couple of years. I start going through it, and he was using it like a debit card. He paid for his car insurance, trips to the liquor store, as he was always drinking ungodly amounts of alcohol, or even just buying donuts. I mean, he had spent all of it. My mother-in-law was furious, but I said, "Listen, you had access to this the whole time. You could have checked what he was doing." I later called my father-in-law and I chewed him out for spending all the money on useless garbage and for wasting my contractor's time. I said, "You spent the money for your home, and now neither of you have anywhere to live." I was furious because this is a man that I care about, and now he is effectively homeless, and my mother-in-law was now living in a 1-bedroom apartment with her sister and her nephew. Well, he got mad, said none of that was true, and then stopped talking to us. He sent an email to everyone else in the family, telling them that I'm a huge jerk, amongst other things. He even reached out to my wife, expecting her to take his side, but she didn't. At this point, he is now estranged to us. He still lives in the fifth wheel on the lot without any kind of electricity, and every November when it gets cold, he will call us or text us or email us saying that he's ready to finish the house now, but that he needs to borrow some money. I had to go up there to get some of my mother-in-law's stuff, and it looks like a complete mess. There's bottles and cans everywhere, there's garbage everywhere, tons of weather damage to the mobile home, all because it's not sealed and finished. There's piles of junk literally everywhere, and the Cadillac is up on blocks because he wrecked it, and he's trying to fix it himself. Oh, and remember the carpet and cabinets and the doors and everything else? Well, they were never installed, and now they're just rotting in the weather. My mother-in-law still lives with her sister and has no plans for her sister when she passes away because she is much older and sicker. She occasionally hints at moving in with us, but that is a non-starter for a million reasons. But this entire situation is absolutely baffling, and it all could have been avoided if they simply listened to us from the very beginning. Yeah, these people are very poor at planning their lives, because seriously, this all could have been avoided. They wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars just to be closer to someone when they could have just driven the 3 hours to see the family. Like, that is so crazy that they spent that much money for literally no reason. So yeah, your in-laws are not the smartest people in the world, because what they did to themselves was entirely preventable. My toxic entitled roommate is constantly trying to take over the house and set rules that nobody wants to follow, demanding that we listen to all of her rules all the time. But after dealing with this for so long, me and my roommates have banded together and have decided that if she doesn't straighten up her act, then we're going to get her evicted. Here's what happened. So I moved in July to a 5-people apartment in a small Spanish city, and it's one that's known for its university life. I'm a student, and so are the other 2 girls that arrived in August, while the other guy is working, and we're all in our 20s. The issue is the 5th roommate, an adult American woman in her 40s, and she moved in late August. We don't really know her age or her specific job, just that she's from California, but also she's been nothing but a nuisance. When I knew that we would be living with an adult woman, I worried that instead of trying to cohabitate, she would try to behave like the head of the household and try to impose her own rules. And so she does. When she wants something done, it has to be when she says so. She doesn't agree with chore division and hates our leniency with those, and has also been complaining nonstop about storage arrangements when there is plenty of space except for the fridges, which were a complete headache to administer. She also only speaks English and barely makes an effort to communicate in Spanish. Now, I'm fluent in English, but my other roommates are not, so that part of basic communication just doesn't work well. But what we all agree on is that she has been fixated on me for some reason. It started with fat-phobic remarks. She became super aggressive with me and would try to command my own storage space. Since I own loads of ingredients, I offered it for free if others would need it, but they refused, since they had their own storage chosen and divided. She said I couldn't use more than one cabinet, but the thing is, she uses 2 different cabinets. She also uses 2 bathrooms and doesn't follow her own chores. It's a common thing for her to say, oh, you have to follow the rules, but the rules don't apply to me. It then became a constant aggression with me, but I gray rocked while also losing my patience. Otherwise, my other roommates are sweet. They're responsible and respectful, and we always talk and agree on things, and no single problem has arisen between us that couldn't be fixed with a quick conversation. It came to a head while I was using the kitchen, and I was calmly cooking while listening to music in my headphones. I like to cook, and I always clean up after myself. She barged into the kitchen, accusing me of occupying loads of space, even though there's plenty of space. I mean, 3 people can cook at the same time in the kitchen. She then demanded that I stop spending time there, while also calling me a hog. Now, at this point, I lost my patience. I raised my voice and I laid it on her. I called her obnoxious and disrespectful, stating that she was demanding and unreasonable, that she's been nothing but a problem ever since she arrived, and I then forbade her from speaking to me until further notice. My other roommates heard the argument, and they sided with me, which further annoyed her. She then tried to establish new rules, like not using the kitchen beyond 6 o'clock p.m., as well as informing when visits are coming, or a mandatory common lunch each week. Well, the resounding no in unison clearly bothered her, and she then just shut herself in her room. Ever since then, she's been avoiding us, and we're all just doing the same. She barely comes out of her room and doesn't speak a word. Sometimes she says stupid stuff in the group chat, but she's just completely ignored or cut off. The agency that manages the flat is aware of the trouble, and we agree that if she persists after this period of silence, then she will be asked to leave. She's probably realized that she cannot force her will, and that we don't want to deal with her. As for now, she's not acknowledged me at all, so at least she's respecting my wishes. And I don't feel bad, because my other roommates and I are a united front. We know how to deal with her, and I just hope she reflects and chooses the best thing for her. Either stay and behave, or just leave. Now, the other thing that really bothers us is that she's awake at night, so we hear her in the kitchen making noise at 4 or 5 in the morning. But she complains if we make noise during the morning or midday because she's asleep. She usually sends passive-aggressive messages at those hours, requesting chores to be done as soon as possible, but we just say that we will do those on our timetable. She's laughed at one of my roommates' accent, mocking how she speaks, and she tries to manipulate the other girls by giving them gifts, which are just old clothing that she leaves on the doors. And when something didn't go her way, she'll say, "Oh, I've been so good with you, I give you gifts." And trust me, there are many more than this, but I really hope that I don't have to deal with her for very long. Yeah, that's an obnoxious roommate. And on behalf of someone who is from America, I'm so sorry you have to deal with one of our worst. This lady sounds like an obnoxious jerk. First of all, you guys are are not kids. You're all in your 20s. You're adults. So for her to walk in and be like, okay, it's my way or the highway, like that's just really weird and there's no reason to act like that. Like, come on. But also, it is incredibly obnoxious that she's literally sitting there trying to make all these demands all the time. Because seriously, who made her queen of the castle? Just because she's older than everybody doesn't mean she has like seniority. That is not how this works. So truly, I hope she does get evicted because this sounds like a miserable roommate. And if I was in your shoes, I would want her gone as soon as possible. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by telling my boyfriend I wanted to break up just to try and win an argument. And now I really regret it because I lost a man that I love very much. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I want to start off by saying that I already know I messed up big time, but I just want to get this out. For a little background, I'm a recovering alcoholic, and right now I'm 4 months sober. So I obviously had a problem, and I ended up getting really sick, and my boyfriend had to take me to the hospital. For the first week, he stayed with me every day, but eventually he had to go back to work, and I was pretty upset because I didn't want to be alone in the hospital, and we argued about it a lot. Then I found out after a few days that he had missed a week of work after he left the hospital. We had been texting, but he hadn't responded as much as usual, and his cousin had called me to ask if he was okay, and I didn't know that he had been missing work. So I called him, and he sounded bad, like really sick. He said he hadn't smoked cigarettes or the herb in over a week, and he hadn't been able to eat or drink anything without getting sick. I told him to go to the doctor, but he said we couldn't afford it since I was already sick in the ICU. Now, I was pretty worried, and he really did sound terrible. He lost his voice, and I could hear him puking over the phone, so I called an ambulance to our room. After a few more days, he had gotten better, and we were talking like everything was okay and I wasn't in the hospital, and he wasn't working 7 days a week up to 14 hours a day. He came and visited me on the weekends after work, and sometimes on the weekdays while he was having to work those, and I could tell he was always tired, but we argued a little because I didn't want him to leave me alone at the hospital all the time. Then he gets a letter from out of state from the CPS stating that his kids got taken from their mom months ago, and no one told him until then, and they wanted to give him custody of his kids, who he had not seen in 2 years, and he was beyond excited. He got to talk to them for the first time in years, and he cried after he got off the phone telling me about it. Then came the big thing. He wanted to stay together, but wait for me to move back in until his court was over because I was an alcoholic, and I had current medical history and problems because of it. It caused a huge argument. I was so mad because he used to drink worse than me to the point where he's throwing up uncontrollably and had the shakes when he quits drinking. I felt like it was unfair. I didn't want to not be with him when I got out of the hospital, even though he said he would visit me at my mom's or rehab. We fought about it every day for 2 weeks. He kept telling me to grow up and that his kids come first, and that if it was the other way around, he would do it no questions asked so that I could get my son. And you know what? He would have. I know that. He worked and took care of me for a year while I spent all his money and got sick. He even gave me sponge baths in the hospital and called my son so I could talk to him because he thought I was going to pass away. Like, I know I was beyond stupid, but I told him if I had to stay somewhere else, we were breaking up. It's always worked before when I wanted to get what I wanted, but this time he just said fine. He told me to do what I wanted then, and that I could be single since I'm always saying it, and he didn't have time to deal with this right now. And honestly, I didn't know what to say. I was mad. He always just let me have my way, and he probably shouldn't have. And now I just don't know what to say. The last thing he told me was that he's sorry and that he really loves me, but he couldn't do this right now, and he hopes that I stay sober. Now, it's been 4 months and I'm in sober living, but I don't have a job, and I haven't found a new place to stay. He still asks my mom about me, and he hasn't found anyone else. He has his kids back, and they're all doing good. And I really am hoping that he's doing good, and that his kids are safe now. I just wish I was there. I miss him, and I miss how he would always hold me when I didn't feel good, or how he made me dinner after he got home from work. I miss his kids, and I wish I could hug them all one more time. I miss how he would smile whenever I pulled his hair out of his face, or when I rubbed his chest. I want to talk to him so bad, but I have him blocked on everything because he told me to lose his number and that he didn't want to see me again after our last fight. He always told me that he's never felt like he did about me with anyone. He took me back after I left him for someone else for a year when his ex ran off with his kids. I messed up so much with him, and I never deserved how great he treated me. I've never had that before. Breakfast in bed when we didn't work, flowers whenever he got paid, presents just because he wanted to. Watching my favorite shows I know he hated and pretending he loved them. I complained at him all the time about stupid stuff, and he always just stayed. He held me and rubbed my hair when I was so mad at him, and I even punched him and gave him a black eye. I just took it all for granted, thinking that he would always be there. I always thought that because he loved me, he would stay no matter what. I didn't deserve him. I tried to make him pick between me and his kids. Everyone in the world telling me how bad I messed up won't ever make me feel as bad as the look on his face when we broke up. Like it was the hardest choice he made. He always told me that the only things he wanted was a family, a house, and a wife that loved him. And I always wanted someone to be there no matter what, and he was doing that. I just got emotional and angry during my withdrawals, and I took it out on him. There were times I treated him so badly, and he just took it. And I'll never find someone like that ever again. I didn't deserve it the first time, and he deserved better. He told me he hopes I get better and that I do better in my next relationship, and that I find someone that treats me how I want to be treated. But who says that after someone breaks up with them? I just hope he finds someone that can be what he wants them to be and treats them as great as he treated me. I'm going through these steps and talking about all of it in a group, and didn't realize how selfish I was being. I just wish I could apologize and tell him how sorry I am, but that will not fix anything. I just have to try and get better and be better. He is the one person I can't talk to during step 9 because I do not deserve his forgiveness. Yeah, I'm just gonna say it straight up, you definitely messed up. It sounds like you have a really good guy that was willing to have your back, and you quite literally took that for granted. Like even saying the words, "I'm gonna break up with you if you don't do this or that," like that alone is so bad it's not even funny. And the fact that you did that more than once must have been like obnoxious for him. And I get it, you feel bad and you see what you did was wrong, but seriously, what you did really was wrong. And at least for the sake of his happiness, I really do hope that he doesn't have anybody like you in the future. And I mean that as nicely as I possibly can, because this story absolutely paints you in a bad light, and I hope that guy finds someone much better than what you gave him on a daily basis. Am I the jerk for telling my wife to take time off of work if she wants to take time for herself? Because right now she's angry with me for taking on a new job, despite the fact that we agreed that the pay increase would be worth it. And right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my wife and I have been married for 12 years and we have 2 kids. We both work full time, but I have got promoted about 3 months ago that required a change to my work hours. I used to have the same standard Monday through Friday hours as my wife, but my new role has me working 10-hour shifts Thursday through Sunday. This promotion came with a pretty substantial pay raise as well. My wife and I discussed how my change in hours would affect our family's day-to-day lives, but we both agreed it would be worth it for the additional income. I use my time off Monday through Wednesday to do pretty much all the family shopping, as well as doing errands, cleaning, and laundry, and I've even been able to make substantial progress on some long put-off home projects. I also cook dinners and prep weekly lunches for the kids and my wife. The additional income is becoming noticeable as well, as we haven't had this much in our savings account in years. A few weeks ago, my wife started griping about my new job. She hates that I'm working all weekend because that means that she's with the kids the entire time. She complains that she goes from working all week to solo parenting on the weekends. Both our kids are in activities on weekends, so she has been doing that by herself as well. We talked about ways to ease some of the weekend stuff from her, such as getting a babysitter, carpooling to kids' activities, taking the kids to their grandparents, and then some. But she still complains that all of the legwork for those things will be done by her, all because I'm at work. She said that she feels like she never has any time for herself since my hours got changed. To try and alleviate this, I suggested that she make plans with friends to do something on Monday or Tuesday nights, and she did try but got frustrated when her friends were busy those nights and wanted to get together on weekends. This led to another argument with her telling me that she hates my new job and that I need to look into changing my hours again. I told her that I've been trying everything to help ease the transition with my new job, but all I've been met with is hostility and frustration. I asked her if there's anything more I can do other than change my hours, and she told me no. She said she just hates that she doesn't get a break and that I have 3 days to myself. I started listing off all the ways I've been trying to make this easier and how much more money we are making, and she just cut me off and said to me that the money isn't worth it. I then got frustrated and I told her if she needs time for herself, then she should just use vacation time from work if she is not going to be reasonable and help me find a compromise. She then got even more mad and told me that I'm being a jerk. She then made me sleep in the guest room and told me that I can't come back to our bed unless I fix this. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, I think I can see both sides of this, but I really have to side with the original poster here. From the sounds of it, it seems like this is a substantial increase in pay, and if they just find some kind of routine 15 to make this work, this could be very advantageous for the both of them and their entire family. So to that end, I don't think the original poster is the jerk. And sure, things are really hard right now, and I can understand that she's like completely overwhelmed, but it really seems like she is unwilling to have any kind of compromise, and she is just refusing to listen to any other like alternative solution. And it's not like the guy can change his hours. Like seriously, he just got this job. If he was like a year in, he could probably switch things up and work during the week. Like that probably would be ideal, but he literally just started it. He can't change that around even if he wanted to. So in my opinion, I do not think that you're the jerk. Am I the jerk for asking my dad to not bring his girlfriend to a football game after he has completely neglected any kind of one-on-one time between the two of us ever since he started dating her? Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I'm an only child. My parents divorced 4 years ago, and I've always had a good relationship with my dad, though sometimes it's been a bit rocky. We've had a tradition going out to dinner every Friday, and I've always tried to maintain a close bond with him. In 2021, I befriended a lady by the name of June, who is a colleague of mine, and for reference, June is 45 years old. We weren't super close, but I considered her more than just a work friend. We had hung out, and at one point, I even asked her to lend me her credit card to buy us Lollapalooza tickets. In return, she asked to visit my family's island house, which I agreed to. I didn't think much of it when I later invited her and her daughter to the house with my dad driving us there. Well, it turns out my dad and June started dating shortly afterwards. They did ask for my permission at first, and I reluctantly said yes. But over time, I began to feel sidelined. June started coming to all of our outings, even to the point where my dad wanted to include her and her kids on our annual New Year's trip. Whenever I wanted to hang out with my dad alone, he would suggest that I tag along with them instead. By October, I had enough, and I told him how uncomfortable I felt. His response was that they were a couple now, and I needed to accept that they would always do things together. I wasn't asking him to choose between us, but instead just to have any kind of time alone with him. Fast forward to last Wednesday, and my dad called asking if he could bring June to our local football club game, which is something that's been a special tradition for us ever since I was a kid. Well, I said no, reminding him that this was supposed to be our thing. He pushed back, saying that he didn't want her to be alone on a Saturday night, but I told him again that my answer was still no. He then called me spoiled and bratty and said to me that he was bringing her anyways. But you know what? I stood my ground, saying that he could go with her, but don't pick me up. He then suggested that we could all have dinner afterwards, to which I said I'd rather go with one of my friends. He then proposed that we all go together, and I said no again. He finally said, okay, but I'm bringing her either way. Then 5 minutes later, he called back saying, you know what? I'm not going. And since then, we haven't spoken. I tried calling on Friday to cancel our usual dinner plans, but he did not respond. He's currently living with June while she builds her new house, so they get to see each other every day. So is it too much to ask for him to go to the game with just me? Is it really such a tragedy for her to stay home for a couple of hours? Am I the jerk for wanting that one-on-one time with my dad? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk here. I think what you're asking is completely reasonable because your dad is seemingly finding every excuse under the sun to not spend any time with you. And I'm sure that you're happy that he is actually with June and they get to spend time together, but it seems like he's going overboard and just completely neglecting any kind of relationship with you. So on that end, I understand where you're coming from, and I can see why you're getting frustrated about everything going on. So overall, I don't think you're the jerk, and I think that your dad should do a better job of trying to reach out to you. I'm considering quitting my job as a restaurant server every single day, simply because it is one of the worst working environments I've ever experienced in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so admittedly, I've only been serving in a restaurant for about a month, but out of all the jobs I've held, this one stresses me out the most. When I began, I only had 2 days of training before I was thrown onto the floor. The first couple of weeks were fairly rough, as I was acclimating to the pace and learning a lot of things on the fly. I dealt with extremely rude and entitled customers along the way, unlike any other retail job that I've picked up. One lady kept repeating that it was her birthday and said, "No tip, there's no tip," and actually ripped her check in half in front of me and the manager, all because I took a little too long from being green. But joke's on her because it was auto gratuity anyways. But ever since the first couple of weeks, I've dealt with a much lower amount of rude customers, probably partly because I've gotten much better and gotten the hang of things. Aside from that, I've quickly discovered that a lot of my coworkers seem fairly toxic. Most of them don't greet you, even when I smile and initiate first. Lots of gossiping amongst the girls, and plenty of private, personal things shared within earshot very often. I mean, people talk so much garbage. One of the chefs was very verbally awful to the servers as well when mistakes were made, no matter how small they might be. Since I was new to serving and made a number of mistakes out of pure ignorance, he decided to target me. Other servers told me it was normal and I should just tolerate it, but he was the only one doing that. He started out with scolding and ramped up to insults with me, but as soon as it got to that point, I had enough and basically said that we're gonna fight outside of work. And ever since then, he's been much quieter and much more cooperative with every one of the servers. But you know what? I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to warn another human being that treating others beneath them is wrong and that there are going to be consequences. I have also never dealt with this much toxicity within such a short period of time. It usually takes longer to unfold, but I guess the stressful environment accelerates that. I truly didn't understand why there were so many messed up people in the food industry until now. I started this because I wanted to work my way up to bartending, but my God, I'm considering rage quitting every single day that I work. Yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from because I've dealt with every single one of those when I was working in the restaurant business. People are super toxic, they don't like working there, and you just happen to be the next person that they get to yell at because they hate their life. Like, that's been my experience, and sure, other people have great experiences working in restaurants, but I don't think I've ever had a good experience being a server, a busboy, or anything. So yeah, that kind of is what you're getting into, and I don't blame you for wanting to quit. Because unless you have a good staff and a good manager to keep things on track, then that job truly can be very miserable. My annoying, lazy coworker is constantly trying to force me to do his job for him. And after dealing with this for long enough, I decided to get some revenge by sabotaging a project he put in my hands, resulting in him not only taking the full blame for this project being messed up, but also by him being punished with temporary leave without any kind of pay. And I've honestly never been more satisfied to get back at my slacker coworker in my life. Here's what happened. So I work in an office with a guy that I will call Seth for the sake of the story. Seth is that coworker that everybody knows. He's lazy, always passing his work on to somebody else, and somehow always getting away with it. He will sit around on his phone or go to the bathroom every 10 minutes. He's the kind of guy who will show up late, make some lame excuse about traffic, and then disappear for lunch for 2 hours. For the past 6 months, Seth's favorite target has been me. He will send emails asking if I can help out with a project, but what he really means is that I need to do all the work while he takes the credit. I complained to my boss a couple of times, but somehow Seth always managed to weasel his way out of trouble. The final straw came when he passed off a major report that was due to a client in 2 days and dumped it on me at the last minute. One day, I casually asked him if he was good with Excel, and he admitted that he didn't know much about it. So I thought to myself, okay, this is perfect. So the next time Seth tried to dump a bunch of spreadsheets on me to organize for his next report, I decided to agree. But this time, I embedded a series of hidden formulas into the documents. Now, these formulas didn't do anything important, just enough to mess with the numbers if someone didn't know how to check for hidden cells. It took me a little time, but I was careful not to make it too obvious. And the kicker here is that every time Seth tried to copy and paste the data into his report, it would scramble everything just enough to make it completely useless. Well, on the day the report was due, Seth slacked off just like usual, assuming that I had handled it like always. When the client called furious because the report was filled with nonsense numbers, Seth started to panic. He then rushed to fix it, but every time he tried to fix one part of the report, something else would break. He then came to me frantic, asking for help, and I just acted confused and said, "Oh, I don't know what happened, maybe it's a glitch." I gave him some vague advice, and I watched as he spent the entire day trying to salvage his mess. Our boss eventually found out, and Seth for once couldn't talk his way out of it. He got lambasted for screwing up such an important project and was put on temporary leave without any kind of pay. So I guess it's easy to say that he'll be doing his own work from here on out. Yes, that is some glorious revenge. I love everything about that. I can't stand coworkers who act like this because they literally make the work environment so unbelievably toxic. And it's all at everybody else's expense, like no one can be comfortable around this person because they're never doing their job and everyone suffers because of that. So I personally love this revenge because this guy absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Would I be the jerk if I returned my parents' graduation gift to them after they gave me a Starbucks gift card, despite the fact that they know for a fact that I hate Starbucks and I'm actively protesting them? Here's what happened. I'm a 22-year-old female and I graduated from college last May, and I received a $25 Starbucks gift card from my parents as a graduation gift. Now, I'm not someone who needs a huge gift or anything like that, but this really hurt my feelings for other reasons. Firstly, though my parents don't care about this, I've been participating in the Starbucks boycott for months now, and this has been incredibly easy for me for reasons that will become very obvious. Secondly, even if I wasn't boycotting it, I still wouldn't use the gift card. I don't like coffee or tea, and I've never liked coffee or tea. And this is something that my parents know, as I repeat it often when they ask if I want anything or to try their drink. I know that Starbucks sells food, but I honestly don't even like their food offerings that much either, especially not enough to go out of my way to get them. Lastly, my dad bought a bunch of gift cards from Starbucks for his company this past winter, and this was part of some raffle thing going on. So I'm almost certain that my parents gave me this gift card not because they went out of their way to get me something, but simply because they just had it lying around. And to be completely honest, that almost hurts more, because it shows that it wasn't even special and it was just convenient. It's now been over 4 months, and I still haven't used the gift card, and I have no plans to do so. And this is where I might be venturing into jerk territory. They don't even know how I feel about this. They sent it to me in a card, and technically don't even have confirmation that I received it. If I give it back to them, as my dad goes to Starbucks like every day, so he definitely would use it, I know that they'll ask where I got it. I see no point in lying to them, and I would just tell them that it was their graduation gift to me. As far as I can remember, and I've racked my brain about this was their only graduation gift to me, so it wasn't a part of something larger. I want to reiterate again that I don't expect a lavish gift, but it hurt my feelings seeing how little thought my parents put into something for me. A selfish part of me wants them to know that it hurt me and wants to hurt them back in some kind of way. So would I be the jerk if I gave it back to them? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. First of all, they know for a fact that you hate Starbucks. You don't like that place. You really have never liked it. In fact, you're even actively protesting against them. So for them to give you a gift card to the place that you don't like, that comes off as incredibly petty, or they're just not paying attention to anything about you, which might be the worst scenario, so hopefully that's not what's happening. But also, if they think that's a graduation gift, then in my opinion, that is just insulting. Sure, you're not looking for anything lavish or expensive, but you're definitely looking for more than, I don't know, a gift card that was just lying around, because it really does sound like that's exactly what your parents did. They didn't have an actual gift for you, so they're like, okay, you can have a Starbucks gift card. Like, that would really upset me if I was in your shoes. So on that end, I don't think you would be the jerk to give it back to them, or even to explain to them that yes, this did hurt your feelings, because this gift card just comes off as thoughtless, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. My toxic manager is one of the worst people to work for on planet Earth, as she is constantly putting us down and demanding that we work harder without ever lifting a finger to try and help us out. And right now, I feel like I'm at my breaking point, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I really need to get it off my chest about the shift I had tonight. We had one server down. My schedule is predominantly centered around our busiest times, so often I'm really busting my butt more than not. Every server was in the weeds tonight, and honestly, it's okay, it happens. None of us are strangers to that in the slightest. However, naturally, all of us servers are voicing our distress with each other, and some even to management. Now, does anyone else have that one manager that just doesn't care about your situation? They literally have no empathy, they're not a listening ear, they're literally nothing. They just scream, do more and more and more. Well, my establishment has this particular manager. She is very no-nonsense, and most of us dislike her, for the simple fact that she never gives any encouragement, positive words, or praise. Anything out of her mouth is criticism. In fact, if she has to do anything other than bark orders at us, then she's on our cases even harder. Like tonight, we once again were on a wait. Now, personally, I feel like as a customer, I would rather wait longer to be sat and have a server who is caught up and able to tend to me in an appropriate amount of time, rather than be sat and wait 10 minutes before the server can approach the table. Everyone is struggling with the tables they have, and said manager is barking at all of us to clear tables so we can basically be immediately sat again and remain in the weeds. At one point, she even said, "They're out of silverware up there, so whenever y'all have the time." And when she said this, my eyes bugged out of my head. I said, does it look like any of us have the time? To me, it's an impossible standard. No one is going to stop the 50 things we are all simultaneously doing to roll silverware. There is no way that's going to happen. Not when tables are already pissed at us because, for starters, they waited to be sat, and secondly, they have to wait more at the table because we are simply too slammed. People then started complaining that food is taking too long, which makes sense as the kitchen is backed up because we don't have many cooks. Like, the whole experience for every customer is poor, all because management would rather seat back to back instead of allowing a steady flow. We are all stressed out, and this particular manager, instead of shining any light or helping out, is basically telling us to shut up and do more and more. And this is the same manager who costed us our best dishwasher, all because instead of hearing him out, she told him to shut up or clock out and leave. And you know what? He left, and he didn't come back, and I just cannot blame him. I fear more will be lost now that one of our best managers is also leaving to manage somewhere else. You know, the cool, laid-back, not strict or pushy or mean type, the one that you love to see there. Well, now we're left with a manager who wouldn't care if a table attacked you, but instead demand that you go out there and bust your tables and roll silverware. You need to help 10 tables at a time. I can't tell you how many times she has basically called us unproductive by speaking to us in a condescending tone. She'll say stuff like, "Come on people, be productive. A full tray out, a full tray in." But regardless, I am so sick of this awful manager because her attitude is ruining this job for me. Yeah, I've had managers like this and they absolutely suck. They don't lift a finger to help out. Oh no, of course not. They're a manager. They can do whatever they want. They get to sit by the bar and watch you work while you're slammed and you have literally no time to do anything, and then have the gall to be like, "Okay guys, be more productive." Like, that stuff drives me crazy, and I don't blame you for being frustrated. In my experience, it's also the same type of manager who only shows up and actually does something at their job when like a regional manager comes in to check on the place. And I know when I worked at a restaurant, that's exactly what my experience was. So hopefully you're able to find a different job than this, because this sounds miserable. And as someone who's gone through this, I can wholeheartedly tell you that there are much better places to work than what you're currently dealing with. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for expecting support from my girlfriend after I just lost my childhood cat? Here's what happened. So this morning started off with me and my girlfriend being affectionate, but then things quickly took a turn. The day before, our family cat, which we've had since I was 4 years old, had become seriously ill. And when I went out this morning, the cat could no longer move, and my mom and I understood that it was time. My girlfriend could see that the cat was in bad shape. After a while, my girlfriend went to my room while my dad woke up. Meanwhile, the cat was actively passing away and in a lot of pain. My mom, with all the love she had, wrapped the cat up gently and took it outside. I opened the door for her, and my dad came out and put the cat out of its misery. After they went outside, I went to my girlfriend with my dog, and I cried a bit in her arms. And that's when I had heard everything had finished. Now, I did not explain anything to my girlfriend right away. I just went to the bedroom and I cried more there. Eventually, I told her why I'd been crying, but she responded by saying she didn't really have any feelings about it, which made me feel like my emotions were being brushed aside. I was still grieving and struggling, so I went to look for my medication, as I do have depression, because I wasn't doing well, but I hadn't taken it yet. I told her that I needed time to process everything, and I asked if she wanted to do something together. Well, she didn't even look at me. She just said to me, "Well, as long as it's not a screen," but I remarked by saying, "You're looking at a screen." But I said it calmly, not trying to start an argument. She was sitting there seeming indifferent, and I really felt unsupported. I told her that her remarks weren't helping, and that I was upset because the cat had just passed away. I tried to do something with her, but I felt ignored and pushed away like she didn't care. She didn't cuddle me or show any affection, and when I hit my head, all she said, without even looking away from the screen, was saying something like, "Oh, are you okay?" So, feeling hurt, I left the room and I went to watch TV, waiting for her for about 8 hours. Eventually, she came out and sat with me and my mom for about 15 minutes, all before I went back to the room, only to find that all of her things were gone. She had left, and now my heart is completely broken. So was I wrong to take my time and see if she would support me? My parents asked me twice to go check on her, but I told them no because I was upset that she didn't seem to care about my feelings or realize that her actions were hurting me. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. You literally just lost your cat. Your dad had to put it down, and this is an awful situation. Like, in that scenario, you would think that this would be the easiest thing for your girlfriend to support you on. Like, seriously, this is not that hard to dial into. It's obvious that you were in pain and she should have been there for you. Now, would I have waited by the couch for 8 hours for her to come out? Absolutely not. I would have said something much sooner than that. I'm not really a fan of trying to test your partner or anything like that, but I think considering your emotional state and all that you were going through right then and there, I can understand where you're coming from and why you did it. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I really think your girlfriend absolutely should have been there for you. Am I overreacting for wanting to break up with my partner, all because they refused to clean in a timely manner? Here's what happened. So me and my partner have been living together for a considerable amount of time now. Before that, I noticed that they had a problem keeping their spaces clean and organized, but I just chalked it up to possible undiagnosed ADHD and a lack of education regarding cleanliness. It's not exactly a situation where I think I can change them, but I did blindly trust their word about working on that. We have assigned chores, but I have been clear that it isn't a strict system. If one of us is unable to do their chores, the other can pick up their slack for the day. Reasons include being sick, being stressed, or just being tired. And I've picked up their slack before, even when the reason was just being forgetful, all without even telling them about it. And that's because it doesn't bother me to help them out. I made sure to assign the more daily chores to myself, just so I wouldn't overwhelm them. I have made lists, and I have let them know they present possibly as having ADHD symptoms, and I say that because I am diagnosed, and I then gave them ideas on how to work with it while they got a diagnosis. And yet, even still, if I'm unable to clean up the apartment in 1 to 3 days, it is absolute chaos. Dishes pile up and dust accumulates, there's weird smells and food crumbs everywhere, and that's all in 3 days. Now, I myself am unmedicated, and I can go through very low points. I do my best to get out of the slumps fast and make as little mess as possible to not overwhelm them, but when I do get out, or even when I'm in the middle of a very bad week, the house is a mess, and it takes almost 2 days to get it back to a decent state. At first, I thought we were both having a bad week, which is no biggie, just let them know and reset. But this has been a repeating situation every 1 to 2 months ever since we moved in together, and the conversations have escalated more and more to the point where I don't bother with being the bigger person and talking about it maturely, but instead I just let go and I berate them. I know it's wrong, but I'm so tired physically, mentally, and emotionally. I'm not sure if this is a boundary or an ultimatum, but I told them once if this keeps being a regular thing, I would break up with them. I love them, but my fatigue is growing bigger than my love. The reason we haven't broken up yet is because once I talk to them, they always show remorse and immediately go running to clean everything, though in that rush, they tend to make more of a mess in the process. Now, I haven't mentioned that because I didn't want to ruin their intentions with feedback about their cleaning, and because quite frankly, I can't afford it. We split rent and they pay some bills. I've done the math, and I wouldn't be able to do anything other than work and go home if I had to pay all the expenses myself. If it was only cleanliness, I think I would be okay. I would be tired, but at least it's manageable. But it's just an all-around lack of consideration for me and my time, followed by kicked puppy dog eyes and I'm sorries and self-deprecation every time I speak my mind. I'm not going to bring out specific situations for the sake of ambiguity, but I feel neglected in every aspect of the relationship. It's making the whole go to work, go home, and then go to work again life seem not as bad. However, since their response is always to get to work and pick up their slack, at least for a few days, I feel like I'm not being patient enough. Aside from the reasons I listed before, I acknowledge that I can be short-fused and still believe they don't want to be like this, but don't have the tools to function like I have. Hence why I'm doubting if this urge to break up is just my own lack of patience or an actual red flag. So am I overreacting in this situation for wanting to break up? What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, in my opinion, if you're saying that yes, I will break up with you if you don't clean up, then in my opinion, that is already a massive red flag. Because at that point, you've said it. You've basically given the ultimatum and you've let the cat out of the bag. But the thing is, I don't blame you in the slightest. If I had to live in a pigsty every single day, all because my partner didn't want to step up and do what they need to do, then I would lose my mind and be like, wait a second, this is not worth it. And sure, I understand where you're coming from, where you're like, listen, they might have ADHD and they don't know how to cope with this stuff, but unless they've gone to a doctor and gotten that diagnosis, I would not try to excuse away their lazy behavior. Because that's all this is really, it's just them being lazy. I don't see this as them having undiagnosed ADHD because nobody knows that except for a doctor. And I really feel like self-diagnosing them and giving them that excuse to not do anything around the house, in my opinion, is a horrible mistake. Like, that is not a good idea, and I don't think you should do that. So I don't think you're completely overreacting, but I also see your hesitancy with this because it sounds like you do care about them and you do want the best for them. And hopefully something can change in this situation because what you described honestly does not sound like a good time. Am I overreacting by my sister's constant jokes at my expense, as she is always saying something so horrible and demeaning about me or my appearance? Because right now I feel very lost and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my sister have never had a great relationship. When we were younger, she went through a really bad depression, which made us grow apart for a really long time. I started distancing myself from her because she would often hurt my feelings with comments and jokes about my appearance or personality traits. So recently we started going to the gym together, and in order to actually make some progress, I started bulking up. And to be completely honest, I used to be incredibly skinny, so I've gained quite a lot of weight at this point, and I still wouldn't consider myself bulky, but my sister and mother haven't stopped making comments on the fact that I've been eating a lot more. And honestly, they didn't really affect me since I'm used to receiving those types of comments, but recently I've been growing insecure on the fact that maybe I've actually started to look fat, even though I'm making a lot of progress at the gym, and it's all because of those comments and the looks. As a note here, my sister quit the gym and isn't disciplined at all when it comes to good habits. When it comes to comments and stuff like this, she criticizes me a lot, which makes me really insecure on the way that I dress, talk, and express myself. Another example is the way that I like cutting my my hair. I'm really into grunge music, so I try to dress to fit the style, meaning that I've cut my hair many times and I really love having a wolf cut. But whenever I change anything in my appearance, I immediately feel insecure and seen by her, and basically my family in general. We've had intense arguments, and she tells me what she really thinks about me when she is upset. She has said things like, "Oh, I'm just trying to excuse myself from being a jerk by saying that I'm being too sensitive." Now, I consider myself very tolerant with awful people, and I often remain silent when someone is rude to me. But for some reason, my family thinks I'm rude and often aggressive with people. But I just don't see this at all, and other people besides my family view me in a completely different way. I also think that I am indeed quite sensitive. Friends have told me that it's a big flaw in me, and to be honest, this really breaks me down. It's been this way my entire life, and the more I grow, the more I feel attacked and undermined by her, which has led me to think that she is jealous or angry at me in some twisted way. So am I overreacting by my sister's constant jokes at my expense? What should I do? No, this is not an overreaction for being upset by the way they're talking about you. And let's just get this clear, they're not jokes. They're hurtful comments that are very one-sided. If they were actually jokes, then you would find them funny. But at this point, she's just insulting you and saying horrible things about you, and then trying to pass it off like, "Oh, I was only kidding." But it's like, no, it doesn't matter if you're kidding or not. What you're saying hurt my feelings, and you can't keep doing that under the guise of, "Oh, I was just messing around." And personally, I cannot stand when people do that, because it's almost like they now have a license to offend you whenever they want. Like, that's not fair for you in the slightest, and you don't deserve that. And I think you might be right about the way she's acting, because it really does seem like she's angry or jealous of you in some kind of way. Like, her behavior is so toxic and so annoying that it's almost coming off as like obsessive or something like that. So no, you're not overreacting and you're not overly sensitive. What your sister has been saying about you is completely inappropriate. And if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would also be upset about this. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And also check out Am I the Genius? They will of course be linked down below in the description. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you in the next video.